This guy, along with 10 others, suddenly found themselves in an abandoned ruin. They were a mix of ages, genders, and backgrounds, but they all had one thing in common. None of them knew how they ended up there. As they were all panicking, a petite fairy suddenly appeared out of nowhere right in front of them and started saying something. The matter is preparing to open a spatial rift, so get ready to fight. However, seeing that the crowd was only interested in shouting and complaining about themselves, she introduced herself as ISO, a fairy tasked with managing every corner of this world. Just then, a 2-star mercenary named Moman. He saw that the little fairy looked harmless, but because she stubbornly refused to explain why she had brought them there, he aggressively drew his sword, threatening to teach her a lesson if she kept staying silent, a scene that made the others wet their pants. After that incredibly stupid move, Moman's head was instantly severed from his neck before he could even let out a sound. As soon as he collapsed, a system board appeared right in front of everyone. The notification clearly stated Moman ranked 2 stars, has just returned to the goddess's embrace. Wow, what an absolutely pathetic death worthy of eternal infamy. Facing their pale, deathly expressions, white as a sheet ISO flashed a cruel smile and told them, "Any of you who still intends to attack me, get ready to return to Mother Earth. Go ahead, that's just self-defense, understood." Countless ear-piercing screams rang out. The sight of just one person losing their head was enough to make all the others scramble around like they'd been scalded. Just then, in mid-air, a system panel suddenly appeared to form a 5-man team. The first to step up were Lai, Lanto, Marilyn, Kankuro, and finally Jackson. With the team set, the little fairy ISO shouted, "Everyone get ready. The spatial rift is opening." No sooner had she finished speaking than 2 giant doors slowly creaked open, revealing a blinding white expanse. ISO pointed in that direction and said cheerfully to them, "See that door? Go in now if you don't want to end up like Momon." Suddenly Han stepped forward and spoke his mind. "I'm sure you still want us to climb the tower. At least summon some weapons for us. You don't want to send a suicide squad in there, do you?" ISO heard this and thought it made sense, so she started sending a message to her master to request some basic equipment for them. Over on this side, Han told the others to hurry and scavenge for weapons in the nearby house because, like it or not, the battle was about to begin. The first 5-man team followed each other through the spatial door with great reluctance. However, not even a minute after they left, the system board sent out the names of those who had just returned to the embrace of death. Since the first group failed, the rest were grouped up to get ready to enter. At this moment, the old man, Da-Jin, saw it was almost his turn to hit the chopping block, so he started acting up, whining, "Hey, fairy, I have chronic arthritis, I can't walk much, please take me off the team." The old man thought people would sympathize with him, but he was unluckily called out for his nonsense by a girl named Jenna. "What the hell with the arthritis? You were walking just fine a second ago. We're in this together through thick and thin." Even though the old man screamed until he was hoarse, the girl grabbed him by the collar and dragged him along anyway. They thought they knew what was on the other side of the gate. To their surprise, it was a temple, but just seconds later, the whole group was teleported elsewhere. The system sent a notification, "Floor 1 has opened." Their mission was to subdue and eliminate all enemies. The goblins, looking like hyenas, were approaching. They were all level 3, and in their hands were sharp weapons. Han knew the battle was about to start and told everyone, "I said it before. Fight and live or don't and die, so keep your heads up," and before he could even finish his pep talk, he turned around and saw 3 guys running for their lives. Jenna shouted in frustration, "Hey, old man, you said you had arthritis!" But they didn't listen. They just kept running as fast as they could, unaware that this place was actually an enclosed space, so they hadn't run far before they were stopped by an invisible wall. Not long after, another player met his fate after being dragged into this world. Like him, he died because he couldn't block a slash from the monster. The surrounding scene was total chaos. Outside of the screaming, there was occasionally some cursing mixed in. "Hey, old man, fight! There's a monster right on your tail." Han was visibly disgusted with this team. Except for him and the girl Jenna, the other 3 were completely incompetent. Besides screaming and getting slaughtered, they were basically useless. Right in front of them now were 2 remaining monsters. Han turned to ask Jenna how she wanted to handle it. Jenna replied immediately, "I'll take one, but what about the others? You can handle those guys who don't even know how to fight right." However, in a moment of distraction while discussing with the girl, his right arm was cut off by a goblin that took the opportunity. The pain was too great with nowhere to vent it, and so he immediately slammed his wooden shield into the face of the monster that had just taken his arm to get revenge. That was the last image he remembered right before entering this world. That level, 999 captured monster, was grinning from ear to ear, thinking about how it got dragged here to be tortured by that pitch-black thing for no reason. Han immediately vented all his rage right onto his enemy's face. He beat it until it looked like a shredded rag so badly that even its own mother wouldn't recognize that mysterious, freakish thing. It was the very creature that dragged him to this place. "Too bad for you, you messed with the wrong guy, pal." His arm regenerated after clearing the stage. Han was still in shock, realizing he'd actually become a character in a game, and worse, he was just a pathetic one-star hero. He knew that in the future he'd likely be sacrificed to feed higher-star heroes, so he used his break time to train like an absolute beast. After finishing his beginner training, he raised his fitness stats and called out loudly to the system, "ISO, are you there?" Just then, the little fairy appeared in a huff, incredibly grumpy. Without even asking what he wanted, she cut him off. "Even if you ask me 1,000 times, I'm not answering anything. If you're so curious, go climb the tower yourself. The answers are all in there." Unfortunately for her, Han was the type who only wanted to do more. The more he was forbidden, the more she told him to shut up, the more he wanted to push her buttons. He asked straight up, "Am I the only one who can see the status window above your head?" Seeing her stall and refuse to answer with that fake plastered-on expression, Han knew for sure that he was the only one who could see the messages sent by the game. "Master," he continued, "what happens to us if the master quits the game?" As expected, she gave another angry, useless answer, but he didn't pay it any mind. He kept firing questions at her regardless of whether she wanted to explain or not. It didn't take long for him to finally figure out how time worked here. Unlike on Earth, ISO couldn't touch him. She could only intervene during self-defense or if a stubborn hero refused the master's orders. Just then, Jenna walked over, curious. Not understanding what the two were talking about, Han didn't hesitate to inform her that they had to raid the 100th floor of the tower and that a presence called the Master was giving orders through ISO. Like it or not, they had to follow his orders and carry out the mission, and ultimately, the only way to escape this place was to reach the 100th floor. After a whole day of training and gathering intel, he realized a rule about this place. Essential items and food would respawn. The next day, he noticed that even heroes of the same rank could have different combat abilities. Training didn't increase raw stats or levels, but rather improved skills and recovery rates. 3 days after finishing training, the master finally logged back into the game. To continue conquering new floors, he was forced to summon more heroes. But as bad luck would have it, they were all 1-stars, real people brought into this world just like him. But they were much louder, looking at their mouths wide open, crying out for their wives, or whining about how hungry they were to get some sympathy. He was sick to his stomach. After ISO shut them up, the noisy crowd, like a bunch of ducks at a market, finally fell silent. They were shoved into the portal and forced to enter the 2nd floor of the tower, with him tasked with subduing and wiping out the enemies. The summoned monsters went wild the moment they saw humans. Rushing to attack, Han didn't hesitate to slash a giant sword strike right into the monster's gaping blood-red maw, then purposely twisted the blade to carve a massive hole. After punching a hole through its head, another one ambushed him. Han immediately raised his shield to block the sneak bite while swinging his sword in a wide downward arc. He took it down on the other side. His female teammate was actually quite useful. On her own, she was enough to turn those goblins into human pincushions. Since only the 2 of them were carrying the team on the 2nd floor, they were the only ones who got the loot. The master must have been a casual gamer who couldn't handle more than 3 hours, so he cleared just this floor and logged off. As soon as Jenna left, those 3 ducks started up again, yelling and screaming until it was annoying as hell. "Why the hell do I have to fight? Where is this place? And what the hell are those monsters?" Instead of jumping in to argue with their tireless mouths, he preferred to stay back and observe. These 1-star heroes were all people far removed from the battlefield, so most of them were soft as mud and had 0 combat ability compared to higher-star heroes. Just then, a guy with a buzz cut walked over, face twisted, wanting to ask a few things. Han just said, "Beat it and ask someone else, you're annoying." The guy was a hothead who looked for a fight every time he opened his mouth. Feeling humiliated because he was ignored, the guy grabbed Han by the collar and threatened, "What did you just say? If you don't talk back, they think you're soft." Without a second thought, Han swung his arm and planted a fist right into the guy's face, enough to make him see stars, effectively ending the conversation. The next day, Han took advantage of the time before the master logged on to train frantically with Jenna. Even though she got hit in the thigh, the wound healed in just a few seconds. The 2 of them kept training hard together until the master logged in. Just like the last stage, it was the same old routine. There were only 2 warriors and 3 ducks on the field for the 3rd floor. While he and Jenna were fighting non-stop, those three didn't even lift a finger, content to be dead weight. Suddenly, Han saw a system notification. It said the player had chosen to restart the level from the beginning, so they had to redo floors 1, 2, and 3 all over again. He thought it would take a long time, but luckily the battle ended just as they were getting exhausted. As soon as they stepped out of the portal, Jenna couldn't hold it back anymore and groaned, "I'm going crazy." "How much longer do we have to carry those idiots?" Han didn't say much, just replying with a blunt sentence, "Don't worry, it'll all be over today." Just as he predicted, matter clicked to synthesize the heroes. The next place they were sent to was the sealed room used to eliminate the weaklings whenever the elimination mode kicked in. After the synthesis, the squad was left with only Han, Jenna, and that lucky blonde kid who had been spared after watching the two people who arrived with him dissolve into light. Eren was terrified, so the moment the group got a break, he rushed over to where Han and Jenna were training to apologize for his earlier cowardice. Han, though, didn't expect anything from this guy. He still tossed him a spear, having heard it was the easiest weapon to use, and immediately skipped the introductions and tutorials telling him to get ready to fight right now. Eren was left speechless, but a second later he shouted, "Wait, aren't you going to teach me?" Han retorted instantly. "I've never used a spear myself, so what am I supposed to teach you? I learned how to fight on my own, so you go learn it yourself." No sooner had he finished speaking than he lunged forward, launching a barrage of attacks without holding back at all, beating the kid until he couldn't even lift his head, forced to just tense up and block every blow until Eren, in a desperate attempt to fight back unluckily, took a kick deep into his stomach, leaving him unable to even stand up straight. Jenna felt a bit uneasy about this instruction method for the newbie. She chimed in, "It's his first time and you're already doing this. Isn't that a bit too harsh?" Han bluntly countered, "I don't want to have to look after others, so if you guys can't keep up, I don't care." Saying that, he pointed the tip of his wooden sword at the other's throat. He emphasized that being torn apart by monsters is far more painful than the synthesis, and if they can't defeat them to survive, then there's no point in talking about family, friends, or brotherhood. After setting Eren's head straight, Han headed to the warehouse because he noticed it had just opened. He called out to ISO, aiming only to ask if she was the one who sent the tips to Matter, and whether it was really her or not, as well as whether she could get online and interfere with the user system, because everything from summoning items 10 times to unlocking the training center and the forge was exactly like the post from a player named Loki. Mentioning Loki made ISO immediately show off her fangirl side for her idol, "You must only be on the lower floors." Master Loki is the grandmaster of all players in the game, pick me up. If he had pulled a 7-star hero, he would already be at the top of the world. Oh, the poor little fairy, a die-hard fan of her idol, was frozen solid the moment Han admitted that he was actually Loki. Account 466631913. To avoid the risk of being hacked, only the account owner and the server know the account number. You check it yourself if you still don't believe me. Do you want me to read you the museum account number too? ISO checked the account via the system immediately. Oh my God. As soon as she realized the person in front of her was the big shot, she threw her dignity away, instantly forgetting that he was the person she hated most. She flew over to beg for an autograph. However, while the two were chatting, they suddenly realized something more terrifying. Nifo 2M was the name of the lounge system in Han's account. "You are the master, but how on earth are you here? Then what will happen to the other 20,000 players at Nifo 2M? Seeing the fairy freak out, he felt drained. He knew this was just a misunderstanding, but she didn't have the ability to send him back to reality. Furthermore, Master Matter was just a human on Earth who didn't even know they existed. That guy was just playing a game while unlucky people like him were being tortured in here. Just thinking about it was infuriating. He tried to ask her a few more questions, like whether he could return home after beating the game, or who was the one who brought him here, but he couldn't pry anything out of her. As for his teammates still training enthusiastically, he saw Jenna as a real talent, the complete opposite of that chicken. Eren, "You can't let your teammates stay weak forever," so he called the two of them to follow him. He then used his status as half-Master Loki to demand that ISO open the warehouse to collect a few things to craft new weapons. During the first time forging a sword, because there was only a furnace and a few materials, everything was in short supply. The system applied 2 penalties to him. Han not only ignored the risk warnings, he chose manual mode and even recklessly clicked on super hard. Faced with ISO's shocked expression, countless cubes poured down like a chaotic waterfall without any sequence. Han flashed a scornful smile, then unleashed his techniques with the speed of a saint, not a mere human. In less than 3 minutes, he actually succeeded. He forged a C-rank longsword that was far superior in hardness to the iron swords he had used before. He didn't stop there. He continued to forge other weapons for his teammates. The day they were dragged to the fourth floor, just one shot from an arrow sent the monster flying back about 10 meters. Jenna knew this stuff was forged from actual ore. However, Sukana was at Master Zero's place summoning heroes, but only the three of them were on the field. While monsters were everywhere in the sky and on the ground, seeing everyone panicking, Han immediately took charge. "You handle those harpies. Aaron, you protect Jenna." The group finished discussing and stood in formation. The young Aaron was supposed to be protecting his teammate, but before the monsters even arrived, he was swinging his sword wildly, screaming his head off. Seeing the kid so excited that he looked like he'd drop dead the second a dry leaf fell to the ground was just plain annoying. Jenna was the first to lose her temper. She was furious, walked up and gave him a stinging slap across the face, shouting, "Calm down! You'll die if you fail this time again! Are you really okay with that?" He stared blankly as a drop of blood from his nose hit his hand. Aaron finally knew where he went wrong. He pulled himself together and dove into the fight for real. Before long, the last of the fourth floor monsters were wiped out. The master's humble estate leveled up to 2, which increased the hero capacity. Not only that, but the annex, the training grounds, and the other areas built earlier were also upgraded. Thanks to clearing this stage, his level went up too. Seeing the little fairy Iso excitedly bringing over a bunch of games, Han already had a good guess. Master Water is just a typical office worker who plays on a fixed schedule. And what's more, he spent real money to get VIP on his first try, even though this game Pick Me Up is known for being a total money pit. It's even more of a sucker for cash than fried chicken is for grease. On top of not rewarding games after clearing stages, they barely ever run any events for free-to-play players to scrape by. Suddenly, the system announced that their master was starting a 10-pull summon. Holy cow, after a blinding flash of light, a whole crowd of people got dragged in here. They poured out like a swarm of angry bees, and Han heard the same repetitive questions over and over. Where am I? Who am I? What the heck is going on? There were so many of them that he was getting sick of it. With his naturally grumpy personality and dislike for small talk, he pointed his sword at a man and threatened, "Shut up. I have no intention of explaining anything to you people. I'll only explain things to those who can actually survive and calm down enough to think." These people were brought here. Actually, there was a reason for it. The little fairy Iso flew over to them and started assigning tasks, slowly adjusting the facilities that had just been built. Since there were many weak one-star heroes, the master began sorting them out and purging them from the main team. Those who didn't meet the standard were immediately thrown onto the first floor. They didn't last long before they met the goddess one after another, and then it was the next group's turn on the chopping block. However, this time, Aaron walked up to the little fairy Iso. He told her he wanted to join the battle. At first, she shooed him away, but after the Great One spoke up and said to just let the kid go in and gain some experience, she agreed, so he waited for his team to return. He saw the group covered in blood, and the young guy Aaron even proudly said he had managed to take down another monster. Time just kept slipping away. Han started his martial arts training with the new recruits, and both Jenna and Aaron's weapon proficiency increased significantly, although there was a bit of a paradox. Aaron was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, but his spear skills had only improved by a tiny bit. A few days later, more new people were summoned to this place, but Han didn't bother with them anymore because Aaron and the 3 younger kids were handling it until one day, Jenna suddenly asked why. Why hasn't the master gone to the 5th floor? It had been quite a while since they cleared the 4th floor. Han didn't give her a straight answer, only replying that the remaining members of the first team hadn't been assigned yet. And as far as he knew, the 5th floor had a different level of difficulty. It was completely different from the lower levels. It was like a floor filled with nothing but bosses. Even he would have a hard time surviving in there. Inside the 4th floor, the mission was to conquer the target and wipe out the enemies. The monsters were summoned instantly, and on this side, Han and his teammates were taking their positions, preparing to wipe everything out. The battle began shortly after. He was only out there to round out the team anyway. He just stood back and commanded while they were the ones doing the fighting. The 3 kids were in front using their shields to push back the enemy while the archers and swordsmen took charge of taking them down. He didn't join in because he could easily clear this stage on his own. This was really just a chance for the others to get some training in. Just as expected, everything ended quite smoothly. Lately, the master has been playing a bit too much, and during the second 10 pull, besides the 1-star fodder, he also got a blacksmith and a craftsman. These were to activate the forge. Most of the items they made were grade E, but thanks to that, the new recruits were equipped with weapons to fight and survive. As for the 3 who tried to run away, they were merged together after all to keep things clean and tidy. You have to work to eat. The big day finally arrived. After a period of stagnation today, they were finally entering the 5th floor, and the whole group was summoned to a ruined city. There wasn't a single monster in sight. Han thought to himself, the whole city is completely empty. Not a single monster shadow to be found. And there weren't any civilians either. This surely couldn't be a conquest mission. To easily figure out what they were dealing with, Han told Jenna to climb the nearby clock tower to check, and the only female member left immediately. But the moment she saw what was in front of her, she turned deathly pale. I really hope my eyes are playing tricks on me. There are so many goblins outside the city, and it looks like they're heading this way. Han asked how many there were, and she didn't hesitate a second, answering thousands. Everyone sobered up instantly, and Han noticed Eren starting to panic. He immediately spoke up to calm him down. Don't freak out. The mission isn't to wipe them all out just to survive. We just need to hold them off for a certain amount of time and we'll be fine. That's the plan for now. But as soon as they started, they realized they couldn't open any of the houses. Seeing that things were going south, they all started running like maniacs until they hit a fork in the road and finally stopped. The monsters were closing in fast. Han immediately came up with a new plan. This alley is narrow, so we only have to fight them one by one. Even if there are 1,000 of them, it doesn't matter. I'll take the left, Eren handles the right, and Zid and Hansen, you two watch our backs. Take turns and don't jump in to help unless it's absolutely necessary. Jenna, you're our ace. Stay right in the middle of the intersection and don't fire unless I give the order. The plan was barely finished when Han spotted a goblin. It was sniffing around right in front of them. Hello, sweetheart. I've been waiting here all afternoon. As soon as they locked eyes, a 30-minute timer started floating in the air. 26 minutes and 48 seconds. The monsters came in waves, piling up on each other like a screaming mountain surrounding them from every side. Han thrust his sword into one. Then he turned back to give orders. Zid switched spots with Hansen. The kid was sweating bullets, still stubbornly wanting to keep going until Han snapped at him, and then he finally stayed put. Take a break for a second. The situation was intense. The goblins were just throwing themselves at them like kamikazes, but since there were so many, it was wearing them out quickly. Hansen had barely joined the fray before he was called back to rest, and Zid stepped in to cover. Jenna's job was much cleaner, one arrow, one kill firing continuously. Once she was done, she'd quickly run to retrieve the arrows for the next rounds. Time was ticking away. Eren couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "Boss! Didn't you say there were only 10 minutes left?" "Yeah, it's 10 minutes, but 10 minutes in pro gamer time." Just then, Zid screamed in pain. The others looked over and saw he'd just had an arm bitten off. His stats were tanking, so it was Hansen's turn to swap in. Turning into a one-armed warrior at such a young age was definitely a shock for Zid. Seeing him sitting there sobbing, Han irritably kicked him to snap him out of it. "Get a grip, you crybaby. You trying to get us all killed, you idiot." After scolding him, he turned and kicked a monster. That same foot that kicked his teammate was now kicking the enemy, a true leader. Finally, Zid stopped whining. Now it was Hansen's turn to yell that his sword was about to break. The two of them swapped places again, while Han held off the horde from afar. Every now and then he'd call out the time to the team. 3 more minutes? Just hold on for 3 more minutes? His words sounded hopeful, but internally he was screaming, "What the hell? Why is 30 minutes taking so long?" They kept swapping out in pairs. They hadn't held on for much longer when unlucky Zid got stabbed by a goblin and went down instantly. A warning alert from the system flashed immediately. Zid Star Level 1 is in critical condition, life in danger. At this point, the rookies without combat experience were starting to get wiped out. As everyone grew exhausted, the goblins flooded in even faster. Hansen was the next one taken out after Zid reducing their number of heroes. Only 3 were left. The game was a total bloodbath, and he had a master with rotten luck who couldn't pull any good heroes. The enemies were worse than zombies, so Han had to switch to a different plan to hang on. Jenna, Eren, stick with me. If you want to mourn them, you have to survive this wave first. They ran to a wall. Han told Jenna to climb up first, and the guys would follow. As she left, he took the chance to slash a few more monsters to buy some time. Next, he jumped onto the wall and signaled Eren to climb up quickly. To his surprise, halfway up, a savage goblin pinned Eren's leg to the wall with a knife. Not wanting to see his teammate trapped, he had no choice but to jump down to finish it off. He cut off that part of the leg to get him free. Even though everyone knew their bodies would regenerate once they cleared the level because of that life-saving move. Another member ended up in a dangerous situation due to blood loss. The monsters went even more berserk, piling up to form a bridge just to chase the 3 of them down. Seeing them coming like a zombie apocalypse was suffocating. Han quickly told Jenna to use Eren's spear to stab them. Instead of shooting arrows like before, she understood and worked with him to stall for the final 30 seconds of this hell-level stage. It worked for a while, but then total disaster. The spear in Jenna's hand was snatched away. He had just told her to use her legs to hold them back when he turned around and saw a few already climbing up. "Oh my God, what else? Why don't you all just come at once?" "This is too much. How are we supposed to survive this?" He raised his sword to kill the nearest one, but suddenly felt a sharp stabbing pain in his stomach. That bastard had been eager enough to twist the blade hard, tearing a huge gash in his gut. All three were suffering from severe blood loss. Their ancestors already had a spot ready for them. Watching them get surrounded from all sides, the protagonist started cursing loudly, lamenting his cursed fate. "It's so unfair! I don't understand why I keep hitting so many obstacles. Why me? Why?" In a life-or-death situation like the 82nd trial, Han went dark without realizing it. In a moment of losing control, he swung his sword wildly. "Any monster that jumps at me, I'm sending you to the afterlife. You want to play? I'll send you all on a journey to the west." Han had learned the Rage skill, a new skill that couldn't have come at a better time. He immediately flipped the switch into slaughter mode, let out a massive roar, and told the monsters, "Come at me all at once! This wave stuff is exhausting, I can't even breathe." The guy, feeling like he had nothing to lose, rose up from the bottom of society. Even with his sword shattered into pieces, he was determined to keep charging forward, fighting to the death. But at the very climax, the time ran out and everything in front of him suddenly froze. Even with his sword shattered into pieces, he still charged forward, dead set on going all out against the monsters. But just as things hit their peak, the time ran out and everything right in front of him suddenly froze. And then it shifted to negative colors. 3 people successfully cleared the level after fighting monsters until they felt like they'd lose their pants, only to get a bonus reward of 2 B-grade wooden planks. What a trash game. It deserves to be deleted and rated 1 star. The 3 of them 10,000 times 3 leaned on each other as they returned to the base. A young kid from the level 1 trio rushed out to greet them with a pretty cheerful look. Big sis Chloe has already prepared some delicious food. "Are Rit and Hansen still in there?" Han coldly let out a single sentence. "They've both sacrificed themselves." That immediately made the boy go silent, unable to utter another word. Han returned to his room and buried his face in the mattress, thinking about everything that had happened. 2 members sacrificed. He also gained a new skill during that moment of losing control, although his previous skill, Calm, helped him keep his head clear, like this time. Once again, letting go of everything to skyrocket in power. It must be related to the fact that he's only a half-hero, since the others didn't get any skills at all. With such a contrast, having gone through the misery of facing life-threatening danger the next day, his whole team immediately buried themselves in training. 1 month in the game passed just like that. After a long period of being MIA, the fairy ISO finally decided to show up, though she was the same as always. That crazy girl nagged and chewed everyone out until they couldn't even keep up, all because they hadn't been training hard enough, only then announcing that the space rift had opened, so some people would be dragged off to do missions. The crowd was led to a gate with a sign that read, "Daily Dungeon, Kendau Forest, open for 11 hours. This session was for gathering rare materials." Before long, the 4-person team entered the dungeon, which was known for its super easy mode. Jenna was the first to speak. "Where is the enemy? Could it be another special mission like the one on level 5? Han heard her, and explained that the daily dungeon is just for gathering materials, while that shimmering thing that looks like a space rift right next to them can be considered the shopping cart. Whatever material you gather, just toss it in there and you're done. After explaining how to collect everything, he told Jenna to follow him to hunt their first target, a deer. Jenna had been craving meat for so long. Seeing the delicious moving target in front of her made her drool. An arrow whistled through the air. It struck perfectly into the deer's neck. As she was a hunter by trade, she didn't hesitate to step forward, pull out her knife, and start poking at the creature she'd just shot down. Not only that, she was excited, telling the person next to her how to butcher and skin it. Seeing how happy she was, Han gave her a few instructions and quickly left to find a new target. In another part of the forest, he was tracking a forest king and its pack, a rare monster. It only appears in hero-tier forest dungeons, and he was determined to hunt it down, because the low-grade elemental stones that drop from it are often used as upgrade materials. Seeing that the time was right, Han leaped from above down onto the pack of beasts. He landed his first slash on one male, then immediately took down the other before they could even realize what was happening. Now only the forest king, standing about 2 meters tall, remained. He looked at it with the provocative expression and taunted, "Your lovers are all dead now. Are you mad? Come on over here to Daddy." A group of people were gathering items when they accidentally saw something huge and terrifying lurking behind the trees. Someone screamed, "Oh my God, a monster!" The other guy with him, however, was much calmer. He vaguely recognized it was Han, so he quickly spoke up to confirm. By now, the protagonist was covered in blood, carrying the prize on his back and slowly walking closer. He dropped the Forest King's head on the ground and told Jenna to help him handle the rest because he had no experience in butchering. Oh my, the protagonist of this game should have been that girl. Right? Fighting monsters to level up, clearing stages to level up. Now even just sitting there butchering forest animals earns a new skill. What is this? Thanks to the bountiful hunt that night, everyone had a meal full of nothing but meat to make up for the time they spent surviving on raw potatoes. Han waited for Jenna to finish eating and told her to leave with him to find items to level up. The daily dungeon changes according to the rules, and today's location was the Shimizu Plateau, a dungeon to gather more elemental stones. Standing before the majestic mountain scenery that looked like an endless plain, Jenna couldn't help it. She immediately began praising what she saw. Han was different. He was staring intently at the Tree of Life growing under the cliff. They are known as the main ingredient for making healing potions, so he would come back to gather them all in one go later. After tailing it for a while, the two of them found and defeated a wolf 3 times their size. Jenna, while butchering the wolf to get the elemental stone, happily said something shocking. "It's so peaceful here, isn't it? I wish it could always be like this. Going hunting, picking herbs, having food, and sleeping under a roof." Suddenly, thinking of Matter, she added, "If only Matter wasn't here, it would be paradise." The guy heard those words and his face went gray. If he had known earlier that a game character had such a pessimistic outlook on life, he wouldn't have bothered playing this game in the first place. A few days later, their team was assigned to the 6th floor with a new member named Zika. Han was walking when he suddenly stopped. He told everyone to crouch down low to avoid being spotted by the enemy. Seeing that tense expression combined with the nightmare that was the 5th floor, it still haunted them. So all 3 members unanimously decided to just lie flat on the ground to be safe. Han felt helpless, but he didn't say anything while he was busy checking every corner. The young man's face turned deathly pale when he heard that. If he'd known the game character had such a nihilistic mindset, he wouldn't have even bothered playing this game in the first place. A few days later, their top squad was assigned to the 6th floor with a new member, Zika. Han was walking along when he suddenly stopped in his tracks. He signaled everyone to get down low to avoid being spotted by the enemy. Looking at his tense expression, it was clear that the nightmare of the 5th floor was still haunting him. So all 3 members unanimously decided to just hit the dirt to be safe. Han felt helpless, but he didn't say a word while he busily checked every single corner. Deep in the forest, the group spotted 3 level 8 goblins chatting nearby. Jenna immediately climbed a tall tree to get a better vantage point and report back on the situation. Upon noticing that all of them carried war horns, she warned the others not to do anything reckless, as the monster's village was just a short distance away, housing about 100 of them. So Han proposed a guerrilla tactic, the talking bushes strategy. "Jenna, you take out the one on the right. Aaron, you handle the next. And the new guy can just sit this one out. If things look like they're going south, then you jump in to help." Han's team really lived up to their reputation. Everyone knew their role. The first arrow whistled through the air. It successfully blew the brains out of the targeted goblin. Aaron didn't just stand there either. He bashed the second one's head in with his spear. The last one tried to lift its horn, but it was already too late. Han had been waiting for exactly that moment. With one clean horizontal slash of his sword, he uprooted the radishes from the ground. As soon as the 3 goblins were taken down, the environment began to shift. Han took advantage of the fading surroundings to scout for clues about the next stage. Since the mission was to explore new lands, there was no way it would only be a single objective. He used the final few seconds to dash toward the monster village, but just as he caught a glimpse of it, he was summoned back to base. As soon as the team returned, Chloe, the cook, ran over in a panic, announcing that a group of armed people had appeared at their living quarters. When Han heard about these people, it was completely different from previous summons. He understood the situation immediately. "It's here. Our cursed hand master finally summoned a high-level hero." Han quickly called for ISO to get the full story. And that's how he found out their gamer friend had just spent $50 on a starter pack to pull this off. And these guys, he told everyone to just go about their business. The newcomer might seem a bit eccentric, but she wouldn't harm them without cause. A beautiful girl stood leaning against the wall, lost in thought. As soon as Jenna saw her, she rushed over to make conversation. "Hi there, I'm Jenna. Shira, what's your name?" The girl was a bit shy at first. but still replied politely that she was Eddie Cullen, a 3-star character card. Her profession, thief, was displayed clearly right before Han's eyes. He quietly sized her up for a moment before inviting her to the dining hall to chat. There, Eddie explained that she didn't remember how she had been summoned into the game. All she understood was that she had to fight to survive. The system essentially meant sacrificing one card to boost the strength of another. She also added that in the real world, she was just a mercenary from the Wolfmane Guild, and she had been pulled here while on the battlefield. I have no idea what's going on, guys. As they were talking, a summons for new arrivals suddenly echoed across the plaza. A guy as big as a double door stomped out, chewing on a piece of meat he'd just swiped from the kitchen. He happily followed ID to the designated spot. The members of the Wolfmane Guild were now all present. They were all roughly the same level, and the guy with the scar and long hair named Evan was nominated as their captain. Seeing these strange armed people suddenly appear in their camp, a few 1-star rookies ran over to Han, insinuating that they wanted him to kick these guys out. Unfortunately, they picked the wrong guy to ask. They chose the king of trash talk, so they were immediately roasted until they couldn't even show their faces. Didn't you guys just say a while ago that you didn't care about training? Why are you begging me now? If they look so strong, why don't you just kneel down and bow to them? Isn't that the survival strategy you always use? In his eyes, these people were nothing more than a bunch of lazy parasites. So he finished them off with one final cold remark. Get out of my sight before I lose my temper. Just a while after the mercenaries left, they returned looking squeaky clean. The leader saw Han and acted cocky, asking who he was. When Han ignored him, the others started jumping around, shouting in anger. Jenna, standing to the side, wasn't one to back down. She snapped right back. What's with the anger? You guys were the ones being rude first. Only then did the leader realize his mistake and speak a bit more clearly. I am Evan Desac of the Wolfmane Mercenary Squad. And you? Since the guy lowered his tone, Han didn't give him a hard time anymore, and introduced himself. They had barely finished talking when the system announced that the master had spent money to summon 10 low-level heroes. The most shocking part was that as soon as he pulled the cards, he immediately enabled the sacrifice mode to feed the high-level heroes without giving the others a chance to show what they could do. Save me! Save me! ISO, as the game manager screamed in despair while clutching his head. Oh my god. Master, you really are an idiot. The people who had just appeared didn't even know what was happening before the golden-haired, bearded giant grabbed them by the neck. Seeing the situation unfold, it was clear how much of a noob the master was at this game. The 1-stars might be useless, but among them were some talented individuals, if utilized correctly. But to sacrifice everyone just for the 3 stars, he was definitely a total gacha newbie. This was clearly his first time. Seeing the remaining level ones about to be dragged away, Han couldn't just stand by. He rushed to ask ISO to relay a warning to the master to stop this. That immediately infuriated the big guy Dakin. He charged aggressively toward Han, and arrogantly demanded to know who he was to meddle in their business. Han didn't fear anyone, so he retorted immediately, "What's wrong? Did I hit a nerve?" That mad dog had been holding a grudge against him for a long time. He didn't hold back anymore and swung his axe in a swift strike, but he missed. Not only that, he was met with a warning arrow from Jenna the Archer. Because of this opening, the 2 sides started clashing. Ivan, the leader of the Wolfmane Guild, aggressively pointed his sword at him and asked, "Do you have any idea who you're messing with? Fine, if that's how it is. I'll just say it straight to stop holding back. You lot are absolute trash, and I'm exposing you right now. You're not mercenaries at all. You're clearly nothing more than a bunch of thugs." After a brief pause, he turned to ISO and said bluntly that even with a high rank, some heroes are just rotten to the core. Ever since you were summoned, you've not only disrupted the waiting room but also slowed down the dungeon clearance. In other words, you're just trash that needs to be taken out. Using his authority as a half-baked master, he demanded the duel system be activated. Why waste breath on these thugs talking about morals when they claim to be mercenaries? You have to use force to get through to them. They had their eyes on the local population from the start, so once he was sure no one else could stand up to them, he immediately took action. He challenged their leader, and the condition was simple. If he won, he would absorb him. And conversely, if the leader won, he would be the one getting absorbed. Han pointed right at the guy's face and demanded the fight begin. "You're in for it now, pal." To make everything perfectly clear, he added one final condition. "The match ends when one of us surrenders. Do you agree?" The moment his opponent nodded in agreement, he drew his sword and lunged at him as fast as he could. To any outsider watching, it would look like a 3-star hero fighting, a one-star hero. Unfortunately for him, although Han is a one-star hero, hidden inside is actually a four-star swordsman. He didn't hold back. Han activated his berserk state. His intelligence dropped by 10 points, but all his other stats gained 5 points each, a massive power shift. This move instantly turned a pathetic peasant into a real boss. It goes to show, don't get arrogant just because of a small difference in rank. This fight wasn't as easy as they imagined. After dodging a sword strike, Han instantly appeared behind him at lightning speed, holding him down with one hand and pinning his head with the other. Without a word, he smashed that smug face right into the hard-tiled floor, and he didn't stop there. Not giving his opponent a chance to breathe, he whipped out the sword from his back and plunged it straight into the body of the guy lying at his feet. Debris flew everywhere, accompanied by a scream like a pig being slaughtered from Evan. Han leaned in close and whispered, telling him to surrender to end the pain. But before the guy could even get the word out, Han twisted the blade, slightly turning his plea into a wail. One of the Wolfmane squad members couldn't stand the sight. He stepped in to intervene. Too bad Han didn't like that. You want me to let him go? Have you ever thought about letting people go when you're busy craving to consume them? He's the boss here, so what he says goes. Besides, this was a mutually agreed-upon duel, so whether it stops or not is up to the participants. There's no room for an outsider like him to interfere. Evan couldn't take it anymore and tried to surrender, but every time he opened his mouth, Han cruelly shut him up. So even if he wanted to, he couldn't end it. Han looked at the others who wanted to absorb him and stated firmly, "This guy is my prey now. Don't waste your energy worrying about his life. Go get some sleep." Even with his intelligence stat dropped to 1, he still remembered the target he was aiming for. Ignoring the others, he looked at ISO and asked why she was still hanging around those losers. It was clear how this would end. So did she plan on playing with that trash forever? Or was she going to join his team instead? ISO was surrounded by a barrage of vile insults from the rude guy Raken. They kept bickering while Evan took the opportunity to fumble for a sword nearby. But nothing gets past him. Before he even had a chance to touch it, Han slammed his head into the ground again. On one side, there was a polite invitation based on respect. On the other, constant shouting and cursing. Bitch this and bitch that. You don't need to guess which side she was going to choose. With one member leaving and the Wolfmane squad effectively dissolved, plus seeing their boss getting smashed by someone else, the remaining 3 were beyond furious. They didn't care about anything anymore and charged in ready to fight to the death. They even arrogantly ignored ISO's warning, declaring that they'd kill anyone who tried to stop them. ISO hadn't struck yet, so they all thought she was weak. These heroes kept defying the master and looking down on the system, so she lowered her voice and threatened, "You guys are done for. There are no second chances." No sooner had she said those words than a bloody, gruesome scene unfolded before everyone's eyes. Even though she looked tiny, that was just a shell holding back her terrifying power. She was level 257 after all. Breaking their necks seemed easier than picking bananas off a tree. All his teammates were wiped out in the blink of an eye. With no one left to lean on, Evan immediately surrendered and his absorption by Han was inevitable. Afterward, Han exited his berserk state and heard ISO report that the master was frantically tapping his phone screen because things weren't going his way. Hearing that, Han guessed he was trying to cancel the absorption. But for a noob who doesn't spend money and plays the game like an idiot, he might as well let him teach him a thing or two. After the reverse 3-star synthesis, upgrade to 1 star. You immediately received 2 new skills, but the catch is that even though you've reached the maximum level, Matter now has to level up himself if he wants to break through your limit. Before that, you walked along while silently feeling sorry for this unlucky player. He saved up a ton of money but misclicked on the first try and lost a 4-star hero. This time he topped up VIP and blew a huge amount of cash just to get 5 3-star heroes. Yet 3 of them died and 1 was absorbed by you. There really is no pain like this pain. You're really unlucky, Matter. After what just happened, you calmly looked up at the sky and wondered what that friend Matter would do next. If he wants to deal with you, he needs to be decisive. Otherwise, he's going to get backlash. As soon as Han pulled into the base, the group of 1-star rookies rushed over to thank him, but he sighed and said they must have misunderstood something. He only saves those who have just been summoned. There's no way he's standing up to protect a bunch of greedy people who just want to slack off. The fat guy and the other 5 didn't understand what he meant, but coincidentally, ISO announced that all 6 of them needed to assemble outside immediately, and the atmosphere suddenly became chaotic. The fat guy quickly turned to the others and reassured them that the master was just taking them out to hunt some goblins, so why worry? Everyone clung to that hope, forgetting that there was still that god of war Han standing right there. You spoke up saying anything else take them to be synthesized. Facing these national-level actors who love playing the victim, you asked them one by one while Aaron and Zika were training until they were nearly broken. Where were these guys? And as for Jenna, while a girl had to struggle out there hunting, what the hell did those dudes do to help? Just as you started to lose your temper, that fairy, ISO threw a punch even faster, knocking out the annoying man no matter how much they cried or complained about their hardships. The outcome was no different from being taken as a sacrifice to feed the ID. For the new recruits summoned today, Han used those who came before as examples to wake them up. At the same time, he warned them that if they couldn't fight, they should find someone to stand behind and learn the trade. There are many ways to survive, so stop making yourself useless. Early the next morning, Han called ID to follow him to the training ground where he asked Jenna to spar with her. However, he emphasized that she had to use a dagger, not fight like an archer. As soon as the boss gave the order, Jenna drew her dagger and spun it lightly in her palm. Just finishing her show-off, she immediately rushed to attack the one-star archer. Using a dagger, she managed to make a 3-star assassin like ID almost pass out from dodging. Her attack speed and strength were unexpectedly fast, so no matter how hard ID tried, she couldn't hold out. Sitting slumped on the ground with an unbelievable look, she immediately asked, "Were you two mercenaries? Or were you part of some famous martial arts clan?" Jenna replied, "Not at all. I'm just the daughter of an ordinary hunter." Han, who had been observing from the side, stepped in to explain that 3-star heroes are inherently strong. She has superior skills and a faster leveling speed than the 1-stars. The key here is the continuous training of both physical fitness and combat experience. That's how you unlock your full power. A young man named Aaron, name withheld by request, was nearby dragging rocks and running around loudly. Hearing this, he shouted, "He's just scamming you. It's all a scam. I've been training until my body is falling apart, but I still can't catch up to them. Look at that attitude, so annoying." Han ignored his words and emphasized one last thing, regardless of who they were in the past, now that they are in this world. Stop being lazy when it comes to training. After the hero purge, the newcomers started to become more sensible. The rookie trial took place. Aaron tried to tag along again, but was refused. 2 people died, and 2 more became sacrifices for the new character named Earth. At dawn, in Han's eyes, sure. But deep at night, in everyone else's eyes, the 5 elite members were called to the yard to participate in a lucky draw. Their group had a total of 6 people, so you will split them into 2 teams. You and ID will act as team leaders. You said that for special missions like the 5th floor, you might need 10 or even 100 people. It would be very troublesome if you don't cultivate enough members, and a reserve team is definitely needed in case the main team is wiped out. After explaining clearly, you held up 2 lots and said red goes with me. Blue goes with ID. No need to be happy or sad because with me or ID it's all the same. But fate has decided. Even playing this game of chance, the trio of 1-stars remained immortal. With teams 1 and 2 established, Han immediately suggested to Matter that all members be fixed this way. As for whether he listens or not, that is a matter for his own brain. Ever since he gained the berserk skill, fighting has become quite leisurely for him. Team 1 just entered the 7th floor with the mission of wiping out the monsters. This time, arriving at the battlefield, you told everyone to just stand still while you handled these guys yourself. As soon as the battle began, Han immediately turned on his power-grinding mode. You lunged forward, swinging your sword like a madman. With strikes piercing in all directions, he took down almost all the goblins in the blink of an eye. Now standing right in front of him was one tiny one, shivering in fear. Yet Han decided not to finish it off and let it go. He followed the clues at each level to piece things together. There were a few things on the 8th floor that caught his eye first. It was raining. And second, there was a huge river near where they were standing. And finally, the traces of a dam. Once he had what he needed, he and his team headed back to base. Just then, an image suddenly popped up in front of him. Master AT must be burning with rage after what happened last time. So this time, he splashed out $70 on the beginner power pack. Man, he's really hooked on this game, that's trouble. He immediately told Jenna to bring the draw slips from his room and put them on the table, while Aaron ran off to fetch ID as fast as he could. The loot was coming, so he had to make the most of it. Master had to level up, or it would be a total waste. After blowing his paycheck to charge VIP for the 2nd time, our unlucky master was smarter now, only using 2 high-level summons. He wasn't going all out like before. It was a complete success. He spent 1,000 gems and got 2 3-star heroes, Ivan K. and Old Man Roderick. But then, this flashy lady appeared. She hadn't even been out for a few seconds before she started off with a faceplant that was beyond embarrassing. ID only had to take one glance at the way she dared to fall. but didn't dare stand up to know she was high society royalty. The thing was, it really wasn't clear why she had been summoned to this battlefield where people talk to each other with their fists. The veterans took a moment to get the newbie up to speed, and while Old Man Roderick understood everything right away, the other one was a bit of a letdown, based on the info they gathered. He was the protector of a large city, but aside from always feeling like he had a duty to fulfill, he couldn't remember anything else. Han told them he needed more manpower so they'd start the draw. If ID pulled blue, the old man would follow her. If it was the other way around, it would be the fancy lady. Once that was set, he shouted for his errand girl Jenna to bring the draw cards. In the rush, the red-marked slip suddenly popped up. Both of them saw exactly what they wanted, so they both lunged for it as fast as they could. Two pairs of hands coincidentally grabbed the red slip. Ivanka was an extremely rare mage, so there was no giving an inch. Whoever won would be the one in charge. Enough talk. Be a good guy for once, will ya? A mage fits my team way better. Oh, too bad I've never been a good guy in my life, baby. They were fighting for a good reason. In pick-me-up, warriors and rogues can be upgraded to 1 star. Through proper training, but mages are different. They're units you can only get through paid summons, and the pull rate is extremely low. So it would be stupid not to fight for it. Jenna saw their endless bickering and realized they'd peaked earlier. She immediately snatched the slip back and shuffled them again to prevent any cheating. On the second draw, they each held something that made their hearts sink. Nobody said a word until Han held up the red slip, and then he'd hit the jackpot this time. But for someone to come, someone had to go. As usual, one of the useless level 1s was dragged off to the synthesis room by ISO to be sacrificed for the new hero. It was brutal, but what could you do? But what? Everyone wants to survive after all. The space rift opened. There went the clown ISO, never missing a chance to show off while taking the newbies to test their skills. ID and Roderick went in first. Meanwhile, Han asked Ivanka what kind of spells she used. She gave him a disgruntled look and asked why he wanted to know, but right away she caught a threatening glare from her captain. "Don't you want to fight anymore? Just answer the question." She didn't seem to realize what kind of situation she was in, so she kept talking back. "Wait, why do I even have to go in there? It's so annoying having to fight in a strange place without knowing why." Han was exhausted. He'd been talking forever, but it was like talking to a brick wall. He dropped his friendly facade and bluntly told her the truth. If she didn't fight, she'd become fodder and get taken to be synthesized just like the others. "And now don't make me lose my temper. Tell me exactly what spells you can cast." Well, that did it. Ivanka finally confessed that her strongest move was a Tier 3 fire ring and that she didn't know anything else. Even so, she was still super confident, saying that if he saw her magic, he'd be totally amazed. No support spell could ever compare. But why wait until then? He was already amazed right now. He had his reasons for asking. Fire battle mages sometimes have the potential to awaken other spells from other worlds. Other people's mages fight in melee fast as assassins and don't even need to chant. That flashy, overdressed lady doesn't look like she can handle any of this. Ed's team has returned, so now it's Team 1's turn to enter the spatial rift. You think Matter sent them to the 4th floor where those happy and goblin mobs hang out? It's perfect for testing the new mage's skills. You cheerfully announce that once the battle starts, you'll just be standing back and watching. You want to see what she's really made of, casually explaining that with the power of any one of those 3, clearing this floor should be a breeze. She was bragging about being such a talented countess mage, so you're telling her to put her money where her mouth is. Who would have thought she'd actually puff out her chest and talk big? Well, whatever, just keep watching and you'll see. Are you sure they're heading to the 4th floor? How could you have guessed the destination would be the 8th floor of the main dungeon? Amazing, good job. That dog Matter is definitely holding a grudge because you snagged those 3-star generals. That's why he's intentionally giving the whole squad such a hard time. Han tells everyone to stay sharp, but he immediately has to rush over to shield Ivanka because an arrow is aimed right at her head. The notice board explicitly stated the mission. The mission is to wipe out the mounted goblins. And there aren't just a few. There are 27 of them. Good grief, goblins on foot are already a pain in the neck. But to add a mount combo on top of that, we'll need to summon every ounce of strength just to survive this. The monsters are getting closer and you immediately start barking orders to Aaron. Whenever they get close, dodge to the side and then strike. The veterans are doing just fine at least. Just as you were about to give pointers to the newbie, arrows start flying everywhere. You have to focus on defense first. Just as you block an arrow with your shield, a mounted goblin gets in close. Without hesitation, you use your sword to slice through it in a clean sweep. You finish it off along with its mount, then move on to take down the ones closest to you. You and Aaron are struggling to hold the line over here. Meanwhile, the grandmother mage is just standing there looking dazed, completely useless. You're so furious, you yell, "I thought you said you were a mage. Kill them all." But oh, the irony. Ivanka says she needs 1 minute to cast her spell, so the rest of the team has to exert themselves to protect her while they wait for her to finish. All the monsters seem to have their eyes on her, determined to take her down at any cost. Han knows he can stall for time, but if he has to block everyone, he might need to buy a resurrection ticket. How is he supposed to manage this? You take a hit and look back, shouting, "Ivanka, can you put up some magic shields or something?" However, the lady stays dead silent. Who knows if she even heard you? Or maybe she just can't answer. The monsters are right on top of us. Oh, we're screwed. It turns out this piece of work can't move while casting. She has to stand completely still to get the spell off. Seriously, can I get a refund on this party member? If we wait for her to finish casting, we're all going to end up in the same grave. Guys, a goblin takes the opportunity to bring its blade down hard on Ivanka's head, and there's no way the overdressed lady can dodge in time. Han risks everything, rushing over to pull her into a roll just in time to escape the danger. Who would have thought he'd get scolded for it? What do you think you're doing? Can't you see I'm turning all that mana into fire? Han drags the dead weight behind him, and the whole group bolts for the forest ahead, while his mind races to figure out a way to survive this mess. For now, they'll head there first. Once they reach the forest, Ivanka has to start casting immediately, aiming the magic at the spot they were just at. As soon as you arrive, you scream, "Ivanka, get into the woods now!" Are you yelling at me? You're shouting that loud. Before she can even finish her whining, the hot-headed guy boots her straight in the back. That'll teach her for being useless and a chatterbox. The enemies are closing in. With no other choice, you unleash your berserk skill, pushing all your power stats to the max to hold the horde back. Your shield is up, deflecting a few arrows. Suddenly, a goblin attacks from the side. They don't usually move fast, but with the mounts, their speed is nothing to sneeze at. Han ducks under a slash and leans back to avoid an arrow. Turns out the monster wasn't just probing, it was a direct assault. Once you get the hang of their pattern, you immediately burst into speed. You move in a zigzag, sweeping through anything that gets in your way. But no matter how tough you are, you're going to take hits when fighting a whole mob. You're unlucky enough to get trampled by a mount and pinned to the ground. Your berserk state breaks and the monster takes the chance to stab down with its blade. Blood splatters everywhere. Luckily, your reflexes were faster this time, and you managed to twist your body just in time to skewer both the rider and the mount in one go. The goblins swarm again like starving wolves. Aaron can't hold back anymore. He wants to come help, but you insist he doesn't. Han, trapped in the crowd, shouts out, "Don't come over here. I'll draw their attention and buy us some time. You and the others just focus on taking out the ones heading toward you. You're getting beaten to a pulp over here, and you've been waiting forever, yet there's still no sign of that magic spell." Luckily, not long after, Jenna brings good news. You have no time to lose, so you take off running for your life. Just as the monsters surround you, you leap into the air, perform a somersault, and then kick one of them right in the face to gain some momentum. Fleeing from that danger the moment you fell was the exact moment the spell was cast. That little mage had been nagging for a whole minute. You were about to pop a vein just in case it turned out to be a dud. If it had been a dud, you'd probably hold a grudge until your next life. With a minute of build-up pouring everything into just 2 words. As soon as she finished, a massive column of fire erupted from where the mage stood. With terrifying speed, it blew everything away over a wide area. It didn't stop, but kept sweeping through everything in its path, much to the shock of you and your 2 teammates. It was powerful, sure, but that wasn't everything. There were still plenty of them left, so Han had to brace himself to take them down. Aaron and Jenna weren't just standing around anymore either. They jumped right in to help. Stabbing and slashing. The fighting was incredibly intense. Meanwhile, Ivanka was still busy dancing with fire, unable to stop chanting to move. Jenna was getting annoyed from having to protect her constantly. As soon as she caught a glimpse of the fire on Ivanka's hands, she screamed a signal for everyone to run fast, or else she'd unleash another area of effect attack. The moment Ivanka opened her eyes, that blaze skill was activated again. Though this time it was upgraded like a tidal wave of fire spreading from the very center of the enemy forces. It quickly flooded everywhere, ultimately turning into an explosion that swept through a vast area. Suddenly, the space was filled with fire. Han held up his shield to avoid the falling rocks and debris. He was visibly panicked. Lucky you and Aaron ran in time. On a battlefield where friend and foe didn't matter like this, you all would have been goners soon. You sat up clumsily. You thought everything was over by now, but to your surprise, a few stubborn monsters emerged from the thick smoke, charging toward you. The most powerful skill, Destruction, was unleashed when Ivanka doesn't attack fine, but every one of her moves targets a wide area. If it doesn't hit the enemy, it's bound to hit her own team. A massive cyclone appeared instantly with terrifying destructive power. It lived up to its name. Jenna had to cling tightly to a large tree to avoid the bad luck of being swept away. Everything was burned to a crisp. The only person standing there calmly watching everything in this battle was none other than Ivanka, waiting for it all to pass. Before Han's eyes now was a massive deep crater that kept on burning. Ivanka carried the team through this stage, but you also contributed quite a bit, so both of you leveled up. Everyone was summoned back, but Aaron still hadn't recovered from the shock. He asked with a completely blank look, wiping out over 20 cavalry knights in just one move. "Is this magic?" Ivanka was even more thrilled to be complimented. But before she could brag anymore, a nosebleed started gushing, and she passed out on the spot. Han looked at the girl with a weary sigh. Aside from being unable to use defensive spells, everything else like strength, vitality, and finesse was ranked below 1 star. This was probably the first burst fire mage you'd ever seen. She's no different from that Dame Megumin from that one show. In the future, you'll definitely need to find another support character who's actually tanky. The next day after the master logged in, they immediately built 3 facilities specifically for your new mage, the Magic Research Center and the Alchemy Lab. The library was also merged into a new magic castle. But because of her performance earlier that same day, Han decided to start a training plan. Muscle training for this princess. A high-quality mage like me, why do I have to go through such savage training? My profession is to use my brain. Oh, spare me the complaining, but here everyone is treated the same. So Han brought out food to threaten her. If you want to use your brain, eat potatoes. Meat is reserved for those who use their bodies to fight. He ignored all her complaints. He surged ahead, running first, determined to make her run enough laps to build endurance. Currently, they were very close to the 10th floor and everything looked smooth. Also, thanks to the dungeons opened yesterday, you gathered quite a few necessary items. As soon as the master logged out, you and ISO ran to the Tier 1 castle. You tossed a few life herbs into the pot. As for how to brew them, why would you need to study? You were already way too experienced at it. The method for concocting medicine was nothing special, just a rhythm game. You just needed quick hands. A perfect combo appeared about to break the score, and with that the healing potion was brewed. It took a little time of frantic button mashing, and now you had 6 bottles of healing potion and 2 bottles of mana recovery in hand. So what if someone finds out? Going to the battlefield without medicine is a death sentence. As dusk fell, Han carried a bowl of hot coals to the equipment room, then called Jenna and Aaron over to discuss the next plan. He told them to watch closely because he would only do it once, and just like that, he stuck his hand into the red-hot coals. The smell of roasted meat filled the air, but the other 2 were terrified, their faces turning pale. They didn't know what was wrong with their boss, but afterward, they learned a terrifying truth. If Ivanka has the ability to control fire, we have to get used to it. He endured it for 10 seconds before quickly pulling his hand out. Because there's a self-regeneration mode here, the hand that was blistering just a moment ago was already healed. Once done, he explained clearly that Ivanka is a fire specialist mage. They have to fight alongside her, so if they don't train for fire resistance, they might get roasted before the enemy does, no joke. You brought this here to make everyone train. Keep repeating it until you can endure it, and only then will we stop. However, when Aaron went to put his hand into the coal fire, you quickly blocked him, then said to find somewhere no one was looking before doing that kind of self-torture. You don't want to watch that. That was just an example. Jenna made a conflicted face, complaining that she's a long-range archer, so why did she have to learn this? But as soon as she finished speaking, that guy grabbed her hand and shoved it straight into the fire. Because Ivanka is the rare type who can't protect herself or move while chanting. Even a snail crawling toward her wouldn't be able to dodge. So if they don't protect her, she's a goner for sure. Seeing that she wasn't in enough pain, he even stabbed a dagger into his own hand as an example, then told Aaron to make sure he learned this pain tolerance skill back in his room. Now getting to the main point, Han demanded that Jenna learn to switch between a short sword and a bow, because the current mid to long range formation is getting scrapped, starting now. He said he'd create a triangular formation with Ivanka at the center as the main damage dealer. You could call it a protect the princess formation, assuming you want to use a mage properly. Early the next morning, the crazy training regimen officially kicked off. As soon as he finished giving Ivanka a drill, he headed over to Jenna's spot just like always. He practiced dodging arrows without using a shield. He'd dipped his hands into a coal furnace so many times he'd developed fire resistance, and now, thanks to catching arrows, he'd gained a counterattack skill too. After firing a volley of arrows, Jenna immediately closed the distance to attack him with a short sword. She followed his orders to swap between the 2 weapons, and he didn't go easy on her either, leaning back to dodge. Then he immediately put an end to that flashy display. With a sword tip aimed straight at her weak point, This was the first time they'd trained like this. But in his head, he couldn't help but think even if she started as a 1-star, she still had massive potential and an incredibly fast learning curve. If I didn't know about this game, I wouldn't have been able to make it this far. Jenna was the complete opposite of a 1-star genius. Jenna was a low-stat prodigy. Aaron, even after upgrading his rookie spearmanship to level 3, had hit a wall, and it had been a while since he'd seen him at the training grounds. He probably hadn't mastered fire resistance or pain tolerance yet. The next day, ID's group was sent to conquer the 9th floor and returned looking pretty beat up. Han ran over to check on them immediately. They looked like they'd had a rough time, so he asked what the challenge was. ID looked exhausted, but replied that the mission for this stage was to conquer a goblin village. About 50 of them, but the only thing she noted was that the ground was like a muddy swamp because it had just rained. That was all there was to it. Besides that, she hadn't noticed anything else. Time went on. Everyone's lives stalled as they focused mainly on training and upgrading their equipment until one day the two teams were suddenly whisked away to the plaza by the master. Out of all of them, only Han realized the master had been logged in for 30 minutes without giving a single command. Right then, a notification box appeared in the space asking if he wanted to conquer the 10th floor. With just one click, their most difficult day had arrived. Today, that guy actually wanted to conquer the 10th floor even though his troops weren't ready at all. A spatial rift appeared, and a massive warning sign immediately slapped them in the face, clearly stating, "Use the tactical room to provide strategy to the heroes." But knowing how clueless the master was, he could easily guess. That guy wouldn't have a clue how to use it. To play it safe, he told ISO to suggest that the master take some items out of storage for them to carry. They were already short on manpower. How could they survive a battle without popping some potions? He held 6 health and mana vials in his hands, then divided them between the two teams before warning Ed, "We might get sent to different areas. In that case, gather up as soon as possible. As for the method, just head toward the center by standing somewhere with a high vantage point." As the group teleported, they immediately saw a man clutching his head and screaming some strange words. Han found it eyesore, so he kicked the guy from behind, yet this person couldn't even see. Who among them was even there? Han looked around and realized these people were all NPCs, and the crowded city full of refugees was the Fallen City, the one from the 5th floor that they had seen before. The only difference was that here, it hadn't fallen to the monsters yet. Jenna realized the problem and asked right away, "Isn't the timeline a bit weird? Everything isn't supposed to be like this." Han replied, "This isn't the first time the timeline has been weird. Let's talk about that later." He said that because the mission hadn't started yet, so they needed to gather information first. He gave everyone 15 minutes to scout as much as possible. Then come back here, anyone late gets left behind. While his teammates scavenged below, Han played ghost to scare people on the clock tower. From what he observed, there were thousands of goblins in the northern forest, while to the east were a few hundred and a river they had encountered back on the 7th floor. Neither direction was currently targeting this place. But at the end of the day, with just a handful of human soldiers here, no matter which monsters came, they wouldn't be able to stop the siege. He thought to himself as he walked down, "Let's see what this mission is. If it's survival like the 5th floor, they might have a chance to win because those NPCs will accidentally become bait plus the fancy lady. Ivanka is here, so their area of effect damage capability is much stronger." He returned to the meeting point, ready to tell everyone the plan, when unexpectedly the alarm bell rang loudly 3 times. Signaling that this level was classified as extreme difficulty, not something easy at all. The 10th floor mission appeared requiring them to defend and protect the city from the threat of collapse. Damn it, so it's not survival, it's defense, huh? Han cursed under his breath as soon as everything became clear. He was right to curse, though. Currently, there were 10 heroes plus 350 NPC soldiers, totaling exactly 360 personnel, while the enemy had thousands. It really lived up to the extreme difficulty rating, because compared to a normal battle, they had 0 chance of survival. Everyone in his team took turns reporting what they had gathered, and when combined, the refugees were all gathering in the city center, while both the north and east gates were under attack, and the other two sides didn't stand a chance with that situation. There is absolutely no way for anyone here to get out. After hearing that, he laid out the mission to everyone, emphasizing that the 2 statues of the goddesses in front of the bell tower are the key. Once they fall, this level is finished too. That means all the heroes will cease to exist no matter where they are. As for the strategy, he directed ID's team. Move to the outer wall on the north side and help with the defense trying to sabotage or push away the ladders they are using to climb the wall. ID heard this and didn't wait to nod, but voiced his opinion. Even if we can stall for time, there's no way we can wipe them out. He knew that, of course, but it wasn't like there was no way at all. Han reminded everyone about the big river on the 7th floor, noting that almost every level below mentions that dam. Jenna suddenly snapped out of it, clapped her hands, and said, "I remember now. I heard something. I heard the sound of horse hooves from the other side of the river." That one sentence made Han and ID understand the problem immediately. He told the leader of the second team to use every possible method. Try to buy as much time as possible until they return. The one with the high IQ spoke very quickly. She nodded to show she understood, then said a few things. Then she led her team in the direction mentioned in the plan. Back here, Han explained it to the other four. The dam we encountered on the 7th floor has already been broken. If the sound of hooves that Jenna heard belongs to the reinforcements, then the reason the city is destroyed is because they couldn't make it in time to save it. So our part is to get outside through the East Gate Cross, through the Goblin Horde, and stop that dam from collapsing. The battle began. Jenna was the quickest, so he ordered her to climb the wall and assess the situation outside. As for Eren, even though he's a bit weak, he's strong, so he handles opening the city gate. As for the slow grandma, Ivanka, she should start casting her spells now instead of waiting until they meet the enemy. As for the remaining rookie soldier, he's just there for show. This level is too tough, and one slip-up means death. Just as Eren started working, the guards got rowdy. They couldn't see them, so they thought the gate was malfunctioning and rushed over to close it. You can't mess with spooky stuff. Because they couldn't see anyone, they blamed ghosts for blocking them from closing the gate. As soon as the light from outside shined through the crack, an arrow flew by. While Ivanka stood frozen in one spot, he was the one responsible for blocking the arrow for her with an incredibly skillful catch. Next was the show of returning it to the sender. It was even more spectacular. Rain happened to fall, but how could that extinguish the scorching Kamehameha from this fancy lady? Suddenly, Han roared, "Don't burn the gate, for heaven's sake, blow it up outside the wall!" The person who always claims to have a high IQ finally followed orders, lit the fire further away, and created a massive earth-shaking explosion. The display was brighter than fireworks. Ivanka had to take a gulp of mana to keep going, looking back at the rookie kid who was trembling behind them. Han said bluntly, "Go to EDD, she'll tell you what to do. If you're still alive after this battle, I'll train you." The opponent heard him and immediately ran off. It was his first time in battle, and running into thousands of monsters would make anyone want to wet their pants. Running away is the best policy. Let anyone say what they want, being alive is better. After they got out, the city gate was closed immediately. "Fire it up, guys. It's time to grind." Han started directing immediately. Ivanka only used level 1 spells. Even if the firepower is weak, it doesn't matter. Just make sure it spreads as much as possible. During the 20-second countdown for the second wave of fire, everyone rushed forward, blocking arrows and fighting monsters to protect her, each doing their part. When the time was up, they all simultaneously stepped aside so she could unleash her attack forward. Everything in her path was flattened, and he immediately charged ahead. Luckily, he managed to gather this person into the team, otherwise this run would have had the whole group crying their eyes out. Just like that, the group kept repeating the process, clearing a path with fire and charging through the goblins, a horde so numerous that even the Mongol army would call them Grandpa in terms of numbers. In a place quite far away, the incredibly cool goblin commander was observing the battle. It held a massive blade in its hand and suddenly raised it high, accompanied by an extremely loud roar. The ones below, for some reason, changed their battle direction and charged crazily, ignoring the fire, looking just like suicide bombers. Han swept through the monsters in front of him with a storm of sword strikes to clear some space, keeping his eyes locked on the special goblin commander standing in the distance. He figured it must have known about the delay in Ivanka's spell, so it drove the monsters to attack recklessly, trying to overwhelm them with sheer numbers. Getting outplayed by a mindless game mob is honestly so frustrating I can't even describe it. The situation couldn't drag on any longer. The fire resistance they'd learned only helped them endure the heat. It didn't make them fireproof, and he was already moving. After wiping out the monsters charging at him, he told the group to regroup to plan another move. The blazing strategy was on again, but this time it wasn't just a random shot. It was aimed straight at a fixed point, a massive fireball with destructive power that blew away quite a few enemy troops in its blast radius. But that was followed by a second tier of magic. This one, called Incinerate, created a huge explosion that reached the goblin commander. Jenna and Eren weren't just standing around either. As planned, she drew her bow and fired a vengeful arrow straight at the commander. She really is a reliable sniper. Every shot counts. Such quality in every shot. Red blood sprayed everywhere as the goblin commander went down and Ivanka collapsed from exhaustion. Han didn't say a word, just scooped her up as the group waited to see what would happen next. What would those monsters choose to do now that their leader was gone? Every passing second was so tense I almost needed an oxygen tank. Luckily, this mob was fixated on one goal. Since they were intent on attacking the castle, they didn't keep charging. Seeing this, Han's team scrambled toward the dam, panting and exhausted, stopping for a moment to recover. They needed to regain their strength to face something even more terrifying than what they'd encountered before. With a thunderous stomping sound, the goblins sent to destroy the supply route had arrived. But this time they brought an ogre level 23, and one look told you it was incredibly bloodthirsty. This thing was absolutely massive. Han didn't have time to waste and immediately ordered a plan. Ivanka would create a firewall to hold them back, Eren would protect her, and they'd each handle their own part. His job was to deal with this oversized pig. The battle began as the ogre slammed a bone club into the ground, creating a deep crater. Then it aggressively swung horizontally, trying to knock him away. But it missed. Jaina seized the moment and fired several arrows at the monster, hitting it squarely in the shoulders, and at first she gloated, thinking this target was way easier to hit until the ogre flexed its muscles and popped everything right out of its thick hide, making her immediately rethink her strategy. Screw this, no point in poking it anymore. The 10th floor of the tower really isn't a walk in the park. They hadn't even found the ogre's weakness when another monster just as big appeared right behind them. In this life-or-death situation, Han's brain went into overdrive. He came up with a plan and charged straight at the enemy, blocking the giant bone club with his shield. It was a heavy hit, but he sucked up the pain, and without stopping, countered with a move he called Farmer's Harvest. He drove his sword straight into the monster's groin. Damn, that's cold-blooded, bro. The monster howled in agony and started swinging its club wildly at him. Han didn't stop moving with lightning speed before leaping onto the beast. His first stab at its neck was too shallow, so he asked for a redo. He used the momentum to jump into mid-air, putting all his strength and a little help from his ancestors into slamming his shield against the hilt of his sword. After that perfect nail-driving strike, the giant ogre was finally defeated. With the excruciating pain from both above and below, that struggle was over. But it wasn't the end. While he was taking down that monster, the other ogre was charging toward the dam. It was the mastermind behind all the chaos. Jaina rushed in to stop it, driving her dagger into its body, followed by a full-power slash from Han. Determined not to let it touch their only lifeline, they attacked the ogre, let out a pained roar, lost its balance, and fell with a splash into the river below. Who would have guessed it would suddenly emerge halfway to break the bridge for good, before finally being swept away by the current? The only supply route for reinforcements was cut off. Han thought about the bleak future where 360 people had to fight endless waves of monsters and felt completely hopeless. Screw this, I'm deleting the game. I'm going to burn down the place that made this game. This level is just too damn hard. Who's even going to play this? Han turned and told the group to head back to the castle to find another plan. But just as they were leaving, Ivanka told them to wait a second and started chanting without a word. She used her magic to lift a massive boulder and throw it into the hole in the bridge, then just calmly said, "What do you think? Moving objects is one of the most basic spells. Why wouldn't I know it?" Han was so angry he was twitching. At the very beginning, he clearly told her to spill everything, but she was still stubborn enough to hide a few spells while the fight dragged on forever. Before they could even catch their breath, another swarm of goblins arrived, thick as ants. Just as he was fighting and worrying that the reinforcements didn't exist, a goblin suddenly leaped toward Ivanka. No one could react in time, and it looked like the fancy lady was done for, but luckily a stranger suddenly appeared. He saved her. The man was riding a horse and completely covered in plate armor, appearing with such a cool vibe that before anyone could figure out what was happening, he shouted a command. "Iron soldiers, show your power, cross the river." Instantly, a mighty army from the other side rode their horses across the bank in one go. They arrived like a storm, pushing back the goblins in the blink of an eye, and didn't linger before heading straight toward the castle. With the cavalry helping, things were much easier. Then Han looked at the fallen soldiers and asked his teammates if they knew how to ride horses. Unbelievable. Everyone in the team knew except for him. To save a little face, he suggested going to the master to have him buy an Intro to Horseback Riding manual. And just like that, the kid had to grit his teeth and shell out 500 gold just to buy a book for a new skill. Once he received it, riding a horse was a piece of cake. As easily as slippings on a pair of shoes, the whole group immediately followed the cavalry, turning back together to counterattack the monsters. Suddenly, in the middle of the field, Han remembered a hint and hurriedly reined in his horse. He shouted to split the forces to one side, saying we would leave the battlefield. Eren and Jenna, though confused, followed him blindly as the whole group headed toward the forest. It was the place where he suspected a goblin cavalry was preparing an ambush. As expected, the moment they arrived, the monsters swarmed out to block their path. That was when he turned around. He said to the person behind him, "Ivanka, do you have any magic left? Focus on the area instead of pure power. From now on, we're going through the northern forest, so use your power to burn this whole place down." A massive surge of magic was unleashed right after the incantation. The four of them stood before the blazing forest, watching the goblins run around in a frenzy. They had never felt so vindicated. After casting that spell, Ivanka was completely out of mana. The group wiped their hands clean and quickly headed back to the city, having just managed to cut off the monsters' reinforcements. Otherwise, with their total manpower, they wouldn't have been able to hold out much longer. The cavalry fighting at the front was indeed much stronger than the city guards. Even though they were in a disadvantageous position, their skills were enough to overcome the gap in numbers. Just like that. They all worked together to defeat the goblins and keep the city safe. While everyone was happily hugging each other for completing the mission so perfectly, a sudden catastrophe struck. The mission clear notification didn't appear. Instead, a red screen popped up stating that a critical error had occurred, causing the entire system to disconnect. Everything around them except for Han stood frozen and faded into a negative color state. While he was still trying to figure out what was happening, two mysterious figures appeared in the distance. The moment he saw the target, he immediately cursed out loud. "That's that level 999 boss from the park, isn't it? In the game Pick Me Up, Han once had a squad made up entirely of 6-star members. They were carefully selected, and he was the only player to reach the global top 5 as a pure grinder. This was a game relying entirely on gacha mechanics, skills, and combat, so the heroes fought on their own in their own ways. However, the reason he stayed loyal to this cash grab game that reserved for the whales was that you could overcome luck with skill. But ever since that pitch black thing appeared, everything deserved a screenshot. I should report this to the game developers. Where does a level 999 monster come from when the level cap is only 99 mana? Suddenly, the one next to it, a mysterious figure with level 15 displayed above their head, uttered a single sentence, "I will wait for you." Just like that, they vanished into thin air. The surrounding scene immediately returned to normal. Han realized the problem, so he hurriedly shouted, "Jenna, hurry up, get on the horse and run to the fortress. It's not over yet." After that dark priest appeared, the undead rose in unison. There were thousands of them pushing everything to the brink of collapse once again. Han told the others to run into the city. However, when it was his turn, he stopped. Despite everyone's desperate pleas, he insisted on staying behind to fight alone. "Forget it, I'm Han the Mad Dog. I'll take them all on by myself." He charged at the zombies alone. Since their weak point was the head, he swung his sword repeatedly, aiming straight for them. But there was one difficult point: the monsters, still stuck to their original goal of attacking the city, frantically pounding their bones against the gates. Before long, the city gate fell and the zombie monsters below poured inside, making everything a complete mess. The game was already hard enough, and now a system error. That's a total rage quit combo. Han put everything else aside and spurred his horse toward the forest. The dark priest had disappeared nearby. To end this, his job was to find and take the head of that jerk. He was trapped out here. So for now, it was all up to his teammates inside the city. The statue of the two goddesses was what they were protecting, so if it were destroyed, everything would end immediately. Han ventured deep into the forest, which reeked of burnt flesh. He stood at the edge of the map and declared, "I know you're in there. Get out here now." In the air, reports of downed squads and injured people were constantly being announced. A column of black energy with a sharp-pointed tip suddenly attacked from behind his back. He immediately spun around and raised his shield to block it, but he never expected that thing to pierce straight through his sturdy equipment. It didn't stop there. Other clouds of energy from everywhere in the air were launched at him simultaneously. He used his evasion skill trying to move and defend, but unfortunately, he still got injured in a few places. Everything was on the verge of total collapse when the dark priest suddenly spoke. "Hey, I want to talk to you." Han snapped back, "Talk sure, whatever." The words were peaceful and friendly, but his actions were the complete opposite. He didn't care to let the opponent discuss anything about him, and he charged forward, thrusting his sword toward the source of the voice. The guy shrieked in pain. Once he confirmed the location, Han activated his rage skill, pulled out a dagger, and rushed straight at his enemy. The guy wasn't dead yet, so he immediately launched an attack, blowing off Han's left arm as a return gift. But what did that pain matter now? He ignored the fact that the bastard had perforated his body like a beehive and was determined to plunge his dagger deep into the guy's body. He was so furious he went berserk, so he enthusiastically slashed across, killing the guy before he could even gasp. Han dragged his broken body to the foot of a tree, but he waited and still saw no mission complete notification. A new recruit unlucky enough to be dragged into the battlefield had just died. Thinking of the people still struggling inside, he wanted to cry. Just when he thought he was going to bite the dust before everyone else, everything finally came to an end. All the summoned troops were recalled, and the rewards for this stage were some gold and low-level fire attribute stones, while countless notifications flooded in for the master about a hero about to undergo an advancement. The most special thing was that the lounge's name was changed to I Respect You in a font-glitched telex style. Well, after that last stage, it would be weird if I didn't respect them. When Han opened his eyes, he found himself lying in bed. Sacrifice during dungeon clears had become a daily routine, so it only took everyone a moment to calm down. And just like that, everything went back to normal. The next morning, he had Chloe the chef prepare a lavish breakfast to heal everyone's souls, and finally he happily ran to the upgrade room that had just been finished. To carry out this important step, 3 fire, water, and wind attribute stones were placed into the matrix, and after a few seconds of waiting, it popped out an advancement star stone. The next thing Han needed to do was go up to the second floor, known as the upgrade area, and place everything necessary inside. Masters cannot see what appears here, and naturally he was the only one who could buy a ticket for this experience. A magic circle appeared, emitting a brilliant light that nearly blinded him. When it finally faded, a mother holding her child appeared. This wasn't his memory, but that of the game character Han Islat. So to save time, he bluntly skipped the cutscene to step outside and check out the surroundings. What caught Han's eye now was a simulated lounge nearby. A spatial rift was opening, and a tiny fairy resembling ISO flew over and signaled for him to go inside. Han thought everything was normal until he stepped through the door and realized this was an upgrade dungeon on super hard mode. Man, he was so unlucky as warning sirens blared in his ears incessantly. His whole body felt crushed under the immense pressure, making it hard to breathe, and all his stats plummeted by 30% for no apparent reason. Just then, an unexpected figure appeared. Standing tall before him, Han immediately activated his skills and rage, but instead of rushing headlong at it, he cautiously braced himself to see what it wanted. Meanwhile, the level 999 monster slowly walked toward him. As she walked, she said, "You are a special existence. This place is a gift for you." For some reason, this girl looked exactly like ISO. If ISO had grown up, she might look just like this. Seeing this, Han clutched his head completely confused and asked, "What on earth are you?" She gently replied that she didn't know how to introduce herself, but Han kept his sword held tight in front of him. After all, she was still a level 999 monster, so he bluntly said, "All I know is that you're a jerk." Han really didn't show any mercy to a pretty lady. She sat down her face, looking quite sincere as she explained it was all just a trick. "Do you think I look like ISO? It's not that I look like her, it's that she looks like me. She's just a copy of me." According to her, this was already the 479 billionth ISO. Wasn't it similar to how many times this game had been downloaded? It wasn't like she only had 1 or 2 names. Each of them was used for different situations. Then she tossed Han a business card. Han looked at it and saw the text, "Chairman of Mobius Corporation." Like, are you kidding me right now? Han angrily stomped his foot. His eyes filled with murderous intent, ignoring her comment about him being rude. "Did you bring me to this place?" That's also one way to put it, isn't it? She acted innocent, advising Han not to be so worked up. She hadn't expected Han to be summoned into this game either. It was just an unexpected event, or rather an accident. Han couldn't care less what her situation was. He coldly said that if she didn't send him back, he would deal with her. The girl grew angry on the verge of revealing her true form. Disdainful of Han, thinking that just because he had 1 star he dared to threaten her. Looks like he was daydreaming too much. If that's the case, then killing Han here will be an answer. The magical substance under her feet transformed into a spear that pierced straight through Han's chest. It hurt, but he didn't show any weakness, and the girl was actually quite impressed by his strength. He didn't even blink when the spear touched his heart. He was truly brave. Han didn't want to beat around the bush and asked straight to the point, what the hell did she want? He knew she had had plenty of opportunities to eliminate him in the game, but had called him here instead. Which meant she probably had another motive. It was nothing special. Really, she just wanted to talk to Han, the invincible player Loki ranked 5th in the world. "I'm a huge fan of yours, you know. I don't know how many of your gameplays have left me truly impressed every time I watch them. Niflheim is also the company's top observation target. How could I possibly ignore someone like you?" Without paying any attention at all, she asked Han what he thought about the plot of this tower-climbing game, though she just asked. Before Han could even answer, she went on to explain, "Honestly, the plot is one of the factors that users don't really care about in gacha games. They're always so obsessed with the content and the gameplay. She also feels like the game's story is pretty outdated, and there isn't much to explore in this world anyway. After evolving her hero just a little bit, most masters don't even know this world exists. She suddenly snapped her fingers and the scenery appeared all around them. She asked him if he knew where this place was. Han coldly replied, "Who has the time to care about that, Grandma?" She seemed a bit embarrassed and quickly apologized, probably realizing she'd gone off topic. Then she started to explain. This scene is on the Tony continent in the Him Peninsula Neoza City. Even though it was a city they found on the 10th floor, it looked completely destroyed. Other scenes appeared one after another. Sylvia, Kaya, Idora, Peonia, Marian, Ikadia, Lingia, Hansi, Arantia, Sidnia, Badia. This is the current state of all the regions belonging to Tanya. Right now, all the continents connected to Mobius have ended up like this. Over 100 million worlds, all facing destruction at the same time. She said this is a book where the ending has already been decided, a sad ending. Everything is coming to an end. The characters in the book all hope for a different ending. What they need to do is simple. They need to pull someone from outside the book into it. They need to fix and rewrite the story. Even if the setup and the probability of the ending become a chaotic mess, even if space collapses and shatters, a higher dimensional entity can alter causality just through observation. That's the reason this game was created, Master. Loki thought for a moment, but then he smirked. I'm wondering what kind of grand plot you're planning to share with me. I want to know why you're telling me all of this. She reached out her hand, proposing a partnership, wanting Han to save the world with her. But because he was out of patience, hearing her spout such nonsense, Loki threw a fatal knife right into her forehead, making both the big Iso and little Iso panic. But even though she was stabbed and in pain like she was about to log out, she still tried to cling on, asking if Loki would agree to work with her. Han angrily said, "Shut your mouth. You bitch, you dragged me to this world, and after making me endure all of this now, you want to team up. What kind of twisted game are you playing? I'm not working with you. If you want to kill me, just try it." She gradually moved toward Loki, the knife falling out of her forehead. As she walked, she complained that Loki was such a rude person and that he had hurt her feelings. With Han's current power at 1-star level 10, he couldn't actually kill that bitch right now. If he wanted to kill her, he had to try to get stronger. But he still barked one last line. "I don't want to talk to you anymore. Just send me back." She seemed offended and said, "You dare to hurt me. I used so much influence just to bring you to this place." She seemed to value Han highly. He was favored compared to other players. Even if they put a high-ranking player in front of him, they would just be like a tiny spark compared to the power of the moon. That was because Loki had achieved a unique milestone that no other player had. She showed Han the phrase, "Master, trust your bond with your heroes." And she was sure he understood the meaning of that phrase. That was the notification after clearing the tutorial. Out of 100 million masters, Loki was the only one. Just then she showed Han a stage on the 80th floor of Nihheim, the place where he became a master 6 months ago. Out of 100 million players, only Loki and 4 others could reach this terrible, difficult challenge. Han remembered how this 80th floor had left him feeling utterly defeated. He wondered why she was showing him this. She invited him to sit down and watch the show together. "Have a seat. You'll feel comfortable with it." Seeing it in person rather than through a screen was incredible. The scenery was magnificent. The 80th floor stage was the first conquest type where everything was hidden from the players. Pick Me Up has random stages, and the difficulty is based on the account. But after reaching the 80th floor, every player failed miserably. Out of them all, only 5 people managed to pass. The 80th floor is also known as the Wailing Wall. Han admitted he had been like that too. He already knew how to clear this stage. "Are you trying to show me a video of me clearing the 80th floor? No, you should keep watching and you'll find out." Little Iso thoughtfully brought him a glass of orange juice. Being invited to watch a movie while being served like this, it didn't get any better. Han remembered that after reaching the 79th floor, he was confident he could clear the 80th floor immediately. Except for his main team, his sub-teams were all wiped out. He had suffered a humiliating defeat, and most of his power was drained. The environment of the 80th floor was so harsh that no life could thrive there. Those grotesque-looking monsters were called fragments. Fragments of Chaos, level 113-2, 755. Fragments of Despair, level 108-3, 164. Fragments of Envy, level 121-2, 348. These fragments made everything from the 80th floor and up feel like hell. The big Iso exclaimed, "You seem to know a lot. So do you know that the difficulty of pick-me-up can be based on the account, and the summoning rates are also completely different? Han was shocked to hear that. The reason he had never pulled a hero above 5 stars wasn't because of the probability, was it? It wasn't bad luck. It was simply that there were no heroes left in Nihime. Similar to the S-rank difficulty, Nihime was one of the few accounts rated S-rank within the company. So how did Loki manage to climb to floor 88? Izo was puzzled. Loki just sat there calmly finishing his orange juice, but before he could even finish, he saw something that made him spill the drink, without anyone noticing in the middle of the battle on the 80th floor. These were the strongest warriors in Nihime from rank 5 down to rank 1. Countless monster fragments were rushing toward them, but just before the battle began, it was suddenly put on hold. It turned out Master Loki had paused it to issue a strategy for his heroes. The system displayed on the screen that the strategy room effect had been applied. You can guide your heroes by tapping and dragging. Loki always came up with interesting and perfect tactics: grab as many items as possible while attacking the enemy. This is exactly why the heroes always trusted him and believed Loki was their one and only master, and they were always determined not to let the plan fail. At this moment, time was frozen with only 10 seconds left before the fight, but they still had to finish their introductions. Have you guys ever seen a Japanese superhero show? It's just like that. Time was ticking away in seconds, but the people remained calm and unhurried. One by one, they introduced themselves. The Bow King Nihaku Gaesfet, the King of Spears, the Sword King Redigian, the Eye King Yonasid, and the Fire King Ceres Agent Tame. Watching the battle start right before her eyes, Izo couldn't help but marvel, "Oh ho, how impressive. They really have pledged their loyalty to you. They are all 6-star heroes. You could say they're the strongest on the server. But in reality, their stats aren't what's important. What matters is what they think of their master. As heroes who climb the tower and constantly evolve, they will eventually realize the truth, and they will soon despair when they find out someone treats them like toys or pets. Can they still remain loyal to their master after that? Most couldn't, but Loki was different. He was the king of Nihime. Just as Izo said Loki's playstyle was unique and intense, something she hadn't expected, he was the only master who didn't use the standard synthesis room. Masters usually use the synthesis room to dispose of heroes when they don't obey orders or are deemed useless. Other masters would usually delete them without a second thought. Because of that, heroes would run from the waiting room in fear, even low-ranked ones who could have shown their talent. Masters would even use them as fodder for higher-level heroes. However, with Han, he had never once rolled a 5-star hero, and he had only ever rolled a single 4-star. People called it a dead account, even telling him to delete it. He persisted in playing. He was already used to the absurdity of it. Most masters treat heroes like toys. They use them until they get bored and then throw them away, like disposable goods. But Han was different. He always valued those with potential, and even if their level was low, he would never abandon them. If he ruled the waiting room through fear, it would soon collapse. Reward them when they prove useful, punish them when they fail. That was Master Loki's principle. At this point, Izo wondered how he knew the truth that the heroes were actually humans, because if Loki didn't know it, he couldn't play like this. To that question, he didn't answer, but in his mind, he thought about it. These heroes were so lifelike that it was hard to believe they were just characters created by a program. They gave different reactions to commands, and the way they acted was never the same. But it all just stopped at being hard to believe. Han never thought of them as human. Everything Izo asked made Han realize, did she and the company really like his style that much? She had wanted to talk to Han at least once, but it was a shame she couldn't do that while he was still on Earth. Unfortunately, she had now gathered Han's resentment, because if he had met her on Earth, he might have buried her 6 feet under. If nothing else happens, Han made sure he would never forget this. Tanya or Nihime have nothing to do with me. I'm from Earth. Don't project your situation onto others. Facing Han's anger, she just smiled and said the heroes of Nihime would crumble if they heard you say that. On the surface, he acted like he didn't care, but he thought to himself if she just wanted him to climb the tower, she wouldn't have brought him here. Nihime's team was attacking aggressively. The whole team, in fact, hadn't suffered any damage. They were all the way up to floor 88, and the demon wall at rank 1 was at floor 90. It was almost in our hands, but while his team was doing all that, he was dragged here. Han said to Izo, "I won't cooperate with you. You'd better get out of my sight before I lose all my patience." She couldn't convince Han to cooperate. She was a little disappointed, and then she admitted that the appearance of the Dark Priest on floor 10 was her doing. But she also promised that from floor 15 onwards, and she wouldn't interfere anymore. However, don't be too happy just yet. She continued, Even if I don't do anything, your Tanya will greet you with a shock. It's just like the S-rank difficulty in Nihime. She explained further. No matter how well Han performs, the probability of the master who owns the account abandoning him is very high, maybe 90%. But if there is interference, everything will change. If he could reach the top of the tower, she promised to send him back and give him half of the shares she owned in the Mobius Corporation, making him a major shareholder. A major shareholder of a supercorporation that could shake the global economy. However, he still felt he couldn't trust this woman. And just like that, she took another knife straight to the forehead from him. He trusted his own abilities. The higher he climbed, the more truths he would uncover. He didn't need to rely on trash like her. He would return by his own strength. As for the big ISO, even after being stabbed for the second time, she just kept chuckling. She said she would forgive his insolence if he started climbing the tower, and she would show him something. At that same moment, a portal slowly appeared and opened. It was the true introduction to Pick Me Up, prepared just for him, the land where humans and demi-humans coexist, the continent of Tanya. On this continent, which was once filled with peace and prosperity, an unknown enemy began its invasion, drowning the continent in dark power and tearing it apart piece by piece. Han's mission was to turn the tide of a battle destined for defeat. These were the images and words of encouragement, the trust the heroes placed in him. Many heroes would walk alongside him on this journey to turn things around. If he wanted to save the world, he had to climb the tower. Along with the big ISO's provocations, she asked if he could really reach the top, a task no one had ever completed. "We'll be waiting for you." Han only replied with a short, "Get lost," and stepped through the portal. The system notified him, "Congratulations, Master, you have awakened the forgotten memories of the hero. Upgrade complete." Han was now a 2-star hero. Graphics were being upgraded. After returning, Eren was waiting for him outside, wondering what he had been doing in there alone. Han simply replied, "Upgrading." Han renewed his resolve regarding his goal to climb the tower, return to Earth, and definitely pay back that woman, the one who had made him endure all of this. The next day, the system suddenly announced an error accompanied by an apology to all masters for the unannounced maintenance that happened a few days prior. To compensate for the error, all masters would receive a special package, 500 gems, 50,000 gold increased affinity points. With heroes, a gift card, and all daily dungeons would be open for 3 days, without time limits. The ISO girl fired fireworks to congratulate the player Loki on leveling up, but it seemed ill-timed, making him frown. He said he had met the true physical form of ISO, and he also knew that the small ISO was the CEO of the Mobius Corporation, but now he didn't care. The important thing was to climb the tower. He only wanted ISO to help him. ISO then pulled out a gold ticket worth 10,000 gold and gave it to him, saying with this card, he could get anything he wanted. It sounded tempting. Gifts were things masters could send to heroes when they did something that the master liked or achieved a good milestone. Usually gift cards were tickets with gold values, but premium gifts could also be bought with gems or high-level materials. Han didn't bother taking it and handed it back to ISO, telling her to give it to someone else. ISO was surprised and started jumping up and down. "You dare to ignore something that can help you get anything? You can't even buy this with money." But Han said not everything could be bought. 10,000 gold can't buy any decent items in the shop. Stop following me, I'm going to sleep." While ISO was panicking, that card turned into a warhorse statue. It turned out the master thought he didn't like money, so he replaced it with this ridiculous statue to give him. But immediately he turned the statue back into dust. Han thought that if you're going to buy gifts, everyone should get one. If the master only gave it to one hero, the others would grow resentful. He believed a master had to study and memorize the personality and preferences of their heroes, instead of just handing them out randomly. In the following days, Han and the team members continued their mission. However, it was clear that most of them were feeling frustrated and visibly annoyed by the master's instructions. At the same time, a rift in space and time opened. Han shook his head in disgust. He thought his biggest opponent was likely the master. They say you don't fear a strong enemy, you fear an incompetent teammate. That was exactly it. The heroes also complained about the repetitive training schedule and the bad experience on Floor 10, which had stressed Ivanka to the breaking point. They criticized, a decent master would take care of their heroes. They thought the mission was just to conquer Floor 8 or 9, but to their surprise, the master made them conquer Floor 11. Annoying. They said, "Does this master think he's that good?" And that was indeed the case. At this moment, the master was suffering from delusions of grandeur, thinking he was too good. Even though the master dumped all the tactical work onto the heroes, he still thought passing the level was due to his own skills. Normally, a master would have to rearrange their heroes on lower floors beforehand. To immediately throw them into floor 11 proved this guy must have just finished playing. Han worried if he could ever reach floor 100 with a complete idiot like that. Although annoyed since the mission was assigned, they had to prepare to fight. The mission for floor 11 was to subdue and wipe out the enemies. Han's team had to face level 11 bone soldiers, 14 of them. The whole team quickly moved into position. These bone soldiers were a bit tough, but they were nothing compared to Han's team. After fighting for a while, these guys were shredded to pieces. Well, forget about shredded, since they didn't have meat. While fighting, Han evaluated this ridiculous pick-me-up game. The difficulty of the first few levels depended entirely on luck, which is why it's called a trash game. If you pull a good hero, you clear it easily and vice versa. The first floors of Han's master were played very well, following the strategy that the player Loki had used previously. He worked hard to develop the facility's train heroes and craft items. However, by floor 5, he started to lose his way. He completed the mission thanks to Han. Otherwise, it would have been a total failure. He thinks he's so talented that he can skip hero training and drag them straight to the 10th floor. At this rate, I'll have to carry the whole team once the challenge is over. And obviously, I'm the one carrying the team. I've leveled up to level 11 with 24 out of 110 experience points, 27 out of 27 strength, 10 out of 10 intelligence, and 25 out of 24 vitality. 25 out of 25 in sword and shield mastery, beginner level 6, defensive mastery level 1, fire resistance level 2, and so on and so forth. That night, Han had an intimate conversation with the manager ISO. Calling it a conversation is generous. It felt more like an interrogation. Han wanted to ask ISO a few things, though. At first, ISO only wanted to answer what she was allowed to. But Han must have manipulated her psychologically because she spilled everything. The first thing was the name of the main entity, the corporate chairwoman who looks exactly like ISO, after which it was revealed that she has countless names. Each world has a different name for her. For instance, in this Tony, she goes by Telly. If it's true that she has 100 million names, then there must be 100 million worlds. Han's account territory is named Nihheim. Rank 4 is Raglansit, rank 3 is Ezekiel, and it keeps going up. Next, Han asked about the universe created by Mobius, which is a spiral-shaped universe connected to thousands of parallel worlds. This answer helped Han better understand the game. Every account has different missions, and no hero is duplicated among players. The next question was whether Master Water is actually human, and if he is being influenced by Telly at all. For some reason, after hearing that ISO became extremely panicked and vanished in a flash, saying she had to go verify the information. Who knows if she went to report to her boss. Before long, she returned and insisted firmly that Water is 100% human, confirming it with other managers. Han heard this and agreed without saying anything more. But if Water is a normal human and isn't being influenced by anyone, then he is truly suffering from a superiority complex. If he keeps this up, it will cause trouble in the future. Even so, Water is only at the first stage of this complex, so it's not impossible to fix, and the most effective way is to remove the hero the Master relies on most, Han. Not long after the Master logged back into the game, everyone wondered what the mission would be this time. If it was to conquer the 12th floor, it would be way too soon, and sure enough, just as they feared. The Fairy ISO announced that the mission was to conquer the 12th floor, and the Master planned to clear 2 floors in one day, but this time Han didn't want to go and refused to participate, thinking that heroes should have the right to demand things and even resist. Sometimes it's okay for a master not to be obeyed. Everyone wondered, is it really okay to do that? Isn't an order mandatory? Didn't others get dragged in even when they were screaming that they didn't want to go? Han explained that everyone can refuse, but only he knew there would be consequences. ISO heard this and broke into a cold sweat. She was afraid the Master would turn him into synthesis material, but Han remained determined not to join this mission. Jenna thought he would leave the combat team to face it alone, but Han let everyone decide for themselves whether to follow him or not. Aaron decided to follow Han and refuse the mission. Jenna and Ivanka, though a bit afraid of dying, also refused. What could 2 girls do on their own? Just like that, the entire first team rejected the Master's orders. Will the Master listen to their requests, or will they punish the heroes for causing this? The Master never thought a hero would refuse an order. But then the Master ordered the summoning of Group 2, consisting of Edis, Rurik, User, and Geeka, all 4 of them. They saw that Group 1 was still there. They were quite surprised, as they thought they had already left for the mission. After learning that Han's team had refused the order, Edis just felt it was too dangerous. If Han didn't prove his value to the Master, he would die. But if the master told us to commit suicide, should we really just do it? No hero is truly loyal. They all fight just because they don't want to die. Despite listening to Han's logic, Edis's group still decided to go in following orders to avoid death, and because it was the best way for the group to get stronger. But soon after, the system constantly issued notifications because of the danger and fear levels of Edis's group members. It seemed the 12th floor was much harder than the 11th, although they successfully made it out. And Gika and User were severely injured after the battle, and Edis, the moment he stepped out, asked Han how to refuse the master's orders. Just like that, Group 2 also refused to participate. ISO saw this and broke into a cold sweat again. Both main groups were unusable. The master won't be able to enter the main dungeons, weekly dungeons, or exploration dungeons. Even the lobby is paralyzed now. Who knows what the master will do next? At this moment, Han didn't forget to tell everyone to keep training. All dungeons will open for 3 days straight, so Group 2 will enter the dungeon to restock on potions. Jenna and Aaron also needed to level up. ISO asked, still terrified, "What if the master synthesizes you?" Han replied nonchalantly, "I'd rather die peacefully than die from overwork." ISO held her head in helplessness, not knowing what else to say. The next day, Han's group entered the weekly dungeon to collect elemental stones to level up. They split into 2 groups and entered 2 different dungeons, and as a result, they received a basic elemental firestone. Of course, they didn't forget to train. Han's sword and shield skills had reached level 6. He needed to train even harder to reach a higher level. Besides that, he also gave Ivanka a mission to practice controlling her magic, because she was only proficient in one type of spell. Days passed, but the master still hadn't logged in. Perhaps he was sulking. ISO was crying, thinking the master had quit the game. The notification that Water had logged into the game made her shriek with excitement, but Han knew the master wouldn't compromise easily. That ego problem of his is honestly incurable. He's definitely going to use all the gems and rewards he's earned to shuffle the attack squad, and just as Han thought, the master had already summoned 3 new 3-star heroes. Worth 1,500 gold, they were Mario, Taser, and Edis. Edis wanted to split the team, but Han told them no one was going anywhere. As for the 3 newcomers, they didn't seem to like each other much. Mazeo insulted the old guy for smelling, and the old man retorted, telling her not to act so high and mighty. The 2 of them immediately started acting hostile. Only Stan kept his cool, running over to beg Han for help because no one would listen to him. Meanwhile, the other 2 started cursing at Stan and his family too. Seriously, what a mess. When Stan realized they were insulting his family, he snapped, and the 3 of them started brawling. While the newcomers were busy learning manners, Isu, the small girl with the big mouth, showed up and chewed them out. Since they were new, Isu had to explain everything from scratch, not forgetting to emphasize, "I am stronger than all of you. Don't do anything stupid or I'll punch every single one of your teeth out. I'll let it slide this time, but next time you'll get nothing." Then she ordered the 3-man squad to conquer the 13th floor per the master's instructions. As for Han, he casually went to sleep knowing they wouldn't be coming back. Just as his head hit the pillow, he got a notification that they were already beating each other up. Taser and Margot had already returned to the goddess's embrace, or to put it simply, they kicked the bucket. The 3-man squad died and the mission naturally failed. The unlucky master logged out in a rage. Seeing this, Isu ran to Han crying, terrified that if the master didn't log back in within 5 months, her account would be automatically deleted. However, Han told her that if you count the in-game time, they still had 1 year and 6 months left, so she didn't need to worry. Everything would work out in the end. Isu kept crying louder and louder, fearing she would disappear forever, until Han pointed out that if the master really wanted to quit, he would have stopped back when he botched the 4-star fusion. Only then did she finally stop. After her tantrum, Han suddenly remembered something. If things went the way Isu said, Nihime wouldn't have much time left. The next day, thank God, the master logged in and bought the golden triple pack. He summoned 3 more 3-star heroes, Noken Why Not, and Gerald. These 3 didn't seem like the idiots from yesterday. Well, they were still idiots, just sleepy idiots. They started looking for trouble the moment they appeared. Han felt these guys needed to be taught a lesson, so he handed them over to Edis. Noken swung his sword to sneak attack Han, but before he could do anything, Han and Edis made him cough up blood. The others followed soon after. Immediately, the system announced that the master had combined a 5-man squad, including the 3-star trio and 2 other 1-star heroes, into the 3rd team. A space-time rift opened, and their mission this time was to conquer the 12th floor. The 3 of them didn't have any hostilities this time, even though one of them was severely wounded. But they passed the test without losing anyone. A few days later, the three-star guys started acting like bullies picking on the weak. However, while they were on a rampage, they spotted Han. They were scared out of their minds. Han didn't even have to do anything to become their worst nightmare. A while later, even without a mage, the class balance in the group wasn't bad at all. The third team kept getting stronger without anyone dying. Water's plan seemed to be running smoothly, and the three of them started realizing the master was playing favorites, so they began plotting a fusion. As the others were discussing the plan, Han walked in, making Noken turn pale as a ghost. "Oh my god, holy crap, Scatter, go to sleep, guys!" Over the next few days, despite some obstacles, the third team still cleared floors 10, 3, and 4. None of them were above level 10, but water still forced them to continue. Han knew that if they reached floor 15, teams 1 and 2 would be fused. Ivanka agreed, saying, "Isn't this the time you should be doing something?" Han said if they wanted to, everyone had the right to switch teams, otherwise they should just wait for the opportunity. Han asked Ivanka if she had mastered the binding spell yet. She demonstrated it for him right away. You could see Ivanka had mastered the basic binding spell and her casting time was much faster, but her stamina was probably still trash. As for the third team, they realized the master favored them and started acting out even more. They demanded larger food rations, occupied other people's spots, and caused all sorts of trouble. If they succeeded in clearing floor 15, they would become even more violent. The next morning, all the teams gathered at the square. As usual, the third team was the one sent to conquer floor 15. Each was given a low-level health potion. Before leaving, they turned back to taunt Han. "You bastard, when we get back, I'm going to tell the master to punish you. You better get ready." Han warned everyone that if the third team succeeded, then everyone had to stop opposing the master, or else they would all die, because the odds of them completing floor 15 were low but not zero. The result of the floor 15 battle was truly a gamble. While the 5 members of the third team were inside doing the mission, everyone outside was waiting for the results. 5 minutes had passed, and no notification had appeared. This made Han a bit worried because it meant they hadn't encountered any danger yet. However, right after that, a notification popped up that left him stunned. Mission failed, and all 5 of them had returned to Mother Earth. They were wiped out in just 5 minutes. Surely something terrifying was inside floor 15. It was probably a special mission. At this moment, an earthquake shook the Tanya territory. Waiting Hall turns out the master had thrown his phone and logged out the second the mission failed. Losing a game and throwing your phone in a rage. I'm sure many gamers have been there, so that's understandable. From then on, Water didn't log in for a long time, and the most worried person was Isu. She cried again, terrified that this beautiful body of hers would disappear if this continued. Han's team kept diligently eating and training, but the 1-star guys just ate and bragged, doing nothing. Even though 10 days had passed since the master and the fusion system were gone, there was nothing left for them to fear. As Isu was crying, a beam of light suddenly appeared, but the master just took a screenshot and vanished from the game again. This login was just to take a commemorative screenshot. Han had a plan by now, and this time he needed Isu's help. It was known that Isu could access the internet, but if she interfered with information from another dimension, she would be penalized. She needed to rely on the data the master left behind. Just watching alone takes over an hour, and if you want to write a topic or send a message, the time will be cut down a lot. Han asked ISO to let him access the internet directly. She was a bit bewildered, but what other choice was there? Since Loki stepped up, the fairy's power grew, and after that, a high-end top-tier machine appeared right in front of Han. This time, he planned to access the Pick Makeup forum and search for Master Water's plea for help. In short, Water wanted to ask everyone. He'd been playing for a month. It was fine at first, but then he got stuck and couldn't clear the stage. He didn't know what he was doing wrong. The state of his waiting room was all 1-star units. Total trash, while all the 3- or 4-star characters were dead as a doornail. Attached was a very honest screenshot. Looking at the character Master uploaded, Han felt a bit of admiration for his own handsome face. However, scrolling down to the comments, it was full of mocking remarks about Master's wisdom, in quotes, of course. Some said, "Whoever is carrying you must be lifting serious weights." And others said, "I have no clue how you even play." Seriously, poke my eyes out, but I'll just read the comments. If he left it any longer, ISO probably wouldn't be able to stand it, so Han had to quickly do what needed to be done. He sent his cloud-stored data to Water to support him. He sent a guide on how to play, hoping it would change Water's gameplay. The post was successfully sent under the name Loki. Naturally, the crowd didn't hesitate to jump in and comment non-stop. But just then, ISO lost power like a lifeless corpse. She asked Han, "What the hell took you so long?" and learned that he had sent Water a guide on how to play. Hearing this, ISO suddenly snapped to attention. Rumor had it that it contained solutions for clearing stages that the community hadn't perfected yet, the guides for passing stages written by Loki himself. It was a book containing everything about Big Makeup. That's exactly right. That was it. It recorded Loki's gameplay process and research over 2 years. The important thing is whether Water actually reads it or not. If he's willing to read it all and can figure it out himself, things are going to get interesting. The next day, living up to everyone's expectations, Water logged back in. This time, the gift he brought for Han was that same warhorse from before. However, this time Han didn't throw it away but proactively accepted it. It turns out that before sending the document, Han had modified it slightly, requiring Water to gift his favorite hero a warhorse statue at least twice. This proved that Water had read the entire document and showed his determination. Han and the two teams stopped their truce and prepared to take action. The next morning, Han was in the room changing into his uniform, getting ready for a new mission. ISO appeared early in the morning to talk to him. She asked Han if Water could truly make a positive change. Han was sure he could, and he wanted to know if he would have a chance to use the internet again. That still depends on the speed of collecting interference points. Interference points are something that Mobius uses to disrupt causality and the laws of reality. Interference points are accumulated when the master logs in plays and clears levels quickly. Besides that, interference points can come in the form of gems. They are called gems, similar to cash in the real world. ISO said if Han brought cash to headquarters, he would get a 1% bonus. Han didn't care much and just walked out. The morning conversation ended. The other members were also waiting for him outside. This was the first time his group had gone out in a long time. It seemed they had rested for too long. Han asked everyone, "Don't your hands and feet feel itchy?" However, Aaron said that even if the master changed his mind, Han's team only had 4 people and was still missing a member. At that moment, Master had summoned Edis to join the team temporarily until they cleared floor 15. But this time, the whole team was transferred to floor 8 to test the formation. These were just level 27 Goblin Cavalry. These guys were way too simple for Han's team. Ivanka was now VIP Pro level compared to before. She used to need 40 seconds to cast a spell, but now she only needed 10 seconds to burn everything to a crisp. Jenna could also unleash attacks much faster. Now she was also supporting very well. Everyone fought fiercely, and they cleared the stage very quickly. The mission on this floor was mainly just for the team to test their own progress. Only one person stood there like a statue, Edis. She wondered, "Why the hell did you call me to join? Are you messing with me?" Han said nothing, though he had his own thoughts. Edis, while still not fully integrated into the team, was a smart person. She would find her role soon. The team quickly cleared the stage and received rewards. This time, Ivanka carried the team because she used magic much more flexibly. Han didn't let her rest either, as he already had plans for her. After that, he just dragged Ivanka to the magic hall and told her to rest assured she wouldn't need to do anything. "Believe you? How could I believe you? You always trick people." Han just wanted Ivanka to perform research here, that's all. Ivanka didn't even understand what she was supposed to do when suddenly ISO appeared and scared the heck out of her. ISO said, "Ivanka, just get used to it." Ayokt. That's been your style from the very beginning. After that, ISO pointed to the table over there and instructed Ivanka, "You just need to solve the problems and put them in the container, that's it." Ivanka looked over the research papers and realized these were things she had learned at the Magic Academy. She didn't want to do it, but because ISO threatened that if she didn't, the master would teach her a lesson, as she had to accept it. Meanwhile, Han was looking for a book to read but couldn't make out a single word. As for Ivanka, she was buried in piles of research papers. She'd been at it for so long, yet she'd only gained a single research point, and the system notified her that her current research speed was consuming 10 gold per hour. Han felt this speed wasn't great, but he knew. Ivanka didn't have any research skills. Just like Han, Master also felt things weren't going well, so he set a research schedule of 3 hours a day. One look at Ivanka's face was enough to tell how dissatisfied she was. Everyone has a life of their own, after all. She complained that it felt like selling herself to a capitalist. The kicker is working for the capitalist should at least come with some perks. But here there was absolutely nothing. Seeing this, Han thought of a way to boost Ivanka's spirits. He asked Master to gift her a fur cloak. Even though it was a bit pricey, as long as she liked it, that was all that mattered. Besides, it was Master's money, not his. So why worry? Seeing her favorite cloak, Ivanka did a complete 180, turning from disgruntled to joyful in an instant. Her mouth kept scolding Han for buying her gifts, but her hands were clutching that cloak for dear life. She agreed to keep working. In the following days, Master continued to change everything. He took the members to dungeons throughout the week to gather materials for crafting weapons at the equipment center and formed a third team consisting of new recruits. All of this showed that he had read and followed Loki's instructions very seriously. Meanwhile, in the research room, Ivanka was trying to coax Han into researching with her. I can only use fire magic, but I still have knowledge of other things. I think you're quite talented. Are you interested in learning magic? Naturally, there were plenty of magic books here, and combined with Han's intelligence, this was feasible. Han also pondered it. As a 2-star character, his class was only a beginner. However, from 3 stars onwards, he could choose a class, and if he met the requirements, he could become a magic swordsman. But then he declined Ivanka's offer. First, because in hidden class didn't necessarily mean it was strong. Second, he knew Ivanka just didn't want to research alone, which was why she was trying to get him to join. Since Han refused, Ivanka had to sadly continue working by herself. While they were chatting, aimlessly, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck from the sky, startling both of them. Perhaps it was a sign of something about to happen. The system notified that hero reaction had reached level 1. The goddess had blessed the waiting room, which explained the phenomenon earlier. This was likely the result of Ivanka's hours of diligent research. This breakthrough had unlocked the hero reaction research. Han told Ivanka to try saying status window. As soon as she said it, a data panel appeared before her. After reading it, she was a bit surprised. Han explained that this was her abilities represented in numbers. And the reason the third team died earlier was because they didn't know exactly what the mission was. They didn't know the conditions to clear that floor, because they couldn't see this system. The hero reaction research allowed the system to help heroes view their own status information, which in turn allowed Ivanka to see all her stats regarding strength, intelligence, HP, speed skills, and so on. After that, Han immediately wanted to inform the other members. But when he stepped outside, the sight that met Han's eyes was Eren running away from something he thought was a ghost. Han quickly explained, "It's not a ghost, you idiot." He held Eren down, allowing the magic to enter his body. As for Jenna, it was completely different. She immediately recognized it and followed the system that Han had just described. By that evening, Han had called the whole team and explained everything about the new system one by one, so everyone could understand. The information would update as they leveled up and everything would change. At this point, Ivanka asked Han 10,000 questions. How and where did he know this? Han simply replied that he just happened to find out. Ivanka's face said, "That sounds like a total lie, but what could they do?" Everyone had their own secrets, and because Han was the most experienced, his advice was always useful. Han's intention was that if everyone could survive until the end, only then would he tell the whole truth. Of course, that would probably be the moment to say goodbye. The next day, Jenna told everyone in the waiting room about this information. But perhaps because the research level was still low, only some information was displayed, and not everyone could see their stats at the training ground. As usual, Han still looked for Jenna to train, but this time was different, because they needed to increase the intensity of the training, so there was no need to hold back. They would use real weapons from now on. And the goal of the training was to beat the opponent to within an inch of their life. So Han countered effortlessly, catching Jenna off guard. Since it had come to this, she fought with everything she had. While they were training until they were completely exhausted, other characters stood outside with their arms crossed, watching them. They knew Han used to be a farmer, but that was hard to believe. That must have been a bluff, right? How could a farmer reach this level? Inside the match, things were getting pretty tense. Eren was still waiting impatiently to train with Han, but Jenna hadn't given up easily. Suddenly, in a moment of distraction, Jenna almost sent Han to the afterlife with a short sword. It turned out she had learned the weak point detection skill. When Han heard that, he was also surprised that the skill was something she had just come up with based on his suggestion. What an interesting girl. He thought it would probably take a lot more effort to deal with her now. However, at that moment, Jenna had another skill level up and attacked continuously, making it seem like Han might lose. Outside, everyone watching Jenna was quite amazed. Han wasn't about to be outdone, but someone else was even more anxious, Eren. He realized this was becoming a clash between two geniuses. Han could only use every ounce of his skill to dodge Jenna's arrows. He couldn't close the gap. Even though he had a shield, he didn't want to use it. He needed something else. He had to train to unlock a new skill. Han focused intently, predicting the trajectory of the arrows and handling them with ease. He quickly gained a new skill. 2 other skills leveled up as well. Jenna finally lost. This was the 19th time he'd beaten her. Now let's see who the real monster is here. After training, the three of them checked their stats. Naturally, Han had the most skills, followed by Jenna, while Aaron still had the fewest. Seeing Aaron looking discouraged, Han quickly comforted him, saying that having more skills didn't necessarily mean being stronger. It depended on their levels, and if a skill didn't fit, it could be a hindrance. Having a skill that doesn't suit you is worse than having none at all. Han's berserk and calm were examples of this, though his case was special. Over the following days, everyone collected enough basic attribute stones very quickly. They were combined to create basic evolution stones. This time it was Jenna's turn to upgrade. She had reached level 10, the second fastest after Han, who was level 12. Ivanka was level 8, and Aaron was level 9. Jenna nervously asked Han, "Will I die?" Han didn't answer, but he had his own thoughts. His own upgrade process had been unique because Telly had interfered, but Jenna would likely see something else entirely. Very quickly, Jenna evolved into a 2-star hero. But when she emerged, her expression looked off. When asked, she revealed she'd had a strange dream about the forest she used to live in being swallowed by a sea of fire. Han said that was just a stupid dream and advised her to forget about it. What he was really concerned about was whether there was anything else unusual. Jenna just felt like the heavy burden on her shoulders had been lifted. Han realized that the evolution process seemed to be reawakening forgotten pasts. All heroes were suffering from memory loss, so when they reach 4 or 5 stars, they would realize the truth, including how they were summoned here, and what had happened to their world. Not long after, Aaron was also evolved into a 2-star hero. It's unclear what he saw in his memories, but afterwards he practiced like a madman. Still, the one who always practiced the most insanely was Han. He was always the last to leave the training grounds. Even though he was stronger, he still couldn't focus his power where he wanted it. If he activated Berserk, he would become more powerful. But his skills would be less effective, and he would easily lose his cool. If he could combine both, it would be perfect, but that was probably impossible. At that moment, Edis approached to check on him and wanted to ask if he had ever killed anyone before. Han coldly replied, "Your team has already climbed to the 12th floor. Are you asking how determined we are? I'm only here because of the lives of others. 3 people were synthesized into me. Do you have your answer now?" That's right. Han had killed the Wild Wolf mercenary group. To him, anything appearing on the screen was a monster. All that needed to be done was kill it. But his teammates were different. The next day, the team went to train as usual. This time, they were sent to conquer and destroy enemies on the 12th floor. Jenna was eager, asking, "Where are the enemies?" Suddenly, they heard a loud shout, "Stop! Drop your weapons and identify yourselves!" It turned out the enemies on this floor were human soldiers, level 11 to 13. The whole team was stunned. Only Edis knew what kind of trouble they were facing. That was why she had asked Han those questions yesterday. Just as expected, Han's teammates didn't want to fight these enemies, because they didn't think they were monsters but human beings. Everyone wanted to talk and resolve things peacefully. The team just stood there like idiots despite Han urging them to take up their weapons and fight. But in the end, he sighed and said, "Fine, do whatever you want." Aaron stepped forward, wanting to try and negotiate with the soldiers. One of the soldiers spoke up, telling him to drop his weapon and come closer to talk. It sounded like a trap from a mile away. This guy Aaron was so gullible. He did whatever people told him to. Seeing this, Han had to curse, "Are you stupid? Why are you doing what they say?" Han demanded the opposite, make them drop their weapons and come over here if they want to talk. After arguing back and forth, Han finally won the point. The soldiers calculated something, and finally decided to drop their weapons, but only 3 of them could approach. Han's team dropped their weapons to discuss peace, but only Han knew it was all a lie. Cooperation never existed. As they got closer, their true colors were revealed. A voice echoed in their heads, even covering their ears didn't help. "Kill you all." Once that was said, the soldiers went insane and attacked Han's team. Obviously, Han wasn't surprised because he had already known. When he was a player, heroes who hesitated to attack were destroyed regardless of who they faced or what they looked like. There was only one goal: kill or be killed. After making short work of a few of them, Han turned to Aaron and asked, "Still want to talk now?" Naturally, the answer was to fight immediately. Jenna and Ivanka also steeled themselves to fight. Whether it was a monster or a human, as long as it was an enemy, it would be destroyed. Edis finally realized her anxiety from yesterday had been for nothing. The most important thing that made this team wasn't talent or strength, but their spirit. Those who do whatever it takes to survive are the true monsters. Very shortly thereafter, the whole team dove into battle against the remaining soldiers. Edis anxiously reminded them that these guys weren't normal, but knowing Han's team, the outcome was easy to guess. One by one, they were swiftly taken out. Their armor was good, but they lacked any combat formation or discipline. Some survivors even regained enough consciousness to beg Han for mercy. "Spare me, I've got a wife and a daughter back home. I have to get back to them." But there was no avoiding it. They had no way to return, and Han's team had a mission to complete. Han finished off the last one with a single punch. These soldiers had been brainwashed. Edis had seen it a few times before, but she had never seen so many people brainwashed all at once. They were just like the ones from the 12th floor battle she had experienced. Looking at the blood on the ground, Han noticed it was black and thick, just like Telly's. However, it was too early to draw conclusions with so little evidence. The team was quickly returned to the waiting room before moving on. Han reminded everyone, "Get used to this. Whether they're monsters or humans, it makes no difference." As predicted, floors 13 and 14 were full of humanoid monsters similar to floor 12, just with different equipment. And their formations were slightly different, but since they were all hostile toward the heroes, it was convenient Han's team could just cut them down without a second thought. But fighting humanoid monsters is more stressful than fighting regular monsters. Watford noticed that, and he didn't make the team fight for the next few days. A few days later, Han's team had leveled it up enough to challenge floor 15. Currently, Han was level 15, Jenna and Aaron were level 13, and only Ivanka and Edis were level 11. They were at a slight disadvantage because at higher ranks, their experience points don't increase as quickly as the others. Along with that, the equipment shop was back in operation so everyone could carry more gear thanks to their pouches. Finally, it was time to fight on floor 15. The mission this time was to climb the tower and save the world. Han didn't know exactly what the mission was, but it definitely wasn't a conquest mission like floor 10. He told everyone to proceed as usual, but he also told them not to rely on him too much. Looking at Han's stats, his total was 107, matching the stats of a 3-star hero, so he was very confident in his numbers. As for Matter, he seemed much smarter after reading Loki's diary. He even knew how to use the function, to record footage to watch back when reaching higher floors. Han turned to caution his team. "There are 2 things I'm worried about with this mission. 1, this is a special mission, like the statue on floor 10. If the statue is destroyed, the heroes die. Floor 15 might have something similar. Group 3 went in and died within 5 minutes. They probably didn't even reach the battle. They might not have even known the cause of their death. The second issue is that we have about 15 minutes to figure out what the mission is. If we don't do anything, we'll fail and die. Time flows differently in the waiting room versus inside the mission based on the time dilation. So we only have about 15 minutes. 5 minutes in the waiting room equals 15 minutes inside the tower. Once inside, the whole team had to gather information in 3 minutes and start the mission. Immediately after the team was transported to floor 15, it was a town, but the people here almost couldn't see the heroes. That meant all of them were NPCs. At that moment, the system provided the mission description. Floor 15 was to protect a specific individual. This meant the team had to find one person out of thousands in this city. Group 3 must have been panicked seeing this crowd. They didn't know the mission, they didn't know who the enemy was. They hadn't even reached floor 10 yet, so they might have thought the goal was to wipe out the residents. There were 2 possibilities for their death. Either they were taken out by the real enemy while attacking civilians, or the person they needed to protect died in the crowd. So if they didn't want to end up like Group 3, Han's team had to find that person, Jenna said. But the problem is we don't even know who we're looking for. It was truly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Han wanted to know if anyone knew the terrain here. Aaron did. He had been here back when he was a merchant. This place was called Adi, a crossroads which created conditions for trade to flourish. In the center of the city, there was a temple used to worship the goddess. It was a very famous spiritual site called the Silver Shrine. Excluding the main city, it was one of the 3 largest temples. That was probably the place to focus on. Very likely the person they needed to find was there. Aaron added that there was probably some kind of event happening there right now. After that, the plan was made. The whole team would go to the shrine to search while Edis would provide support. Just as Aaron predicted, a special event was happening there. The 4 of them walked straight into the shrine. Even when the guard tried to stop them, Han didn't hesitate to take action. Aaron saw this and tried to stop him. "Whoa, take it easy, man." But Han handled the remaining guard anyway. "Don't you guys get it yet? They can see us, which means they are the enemies. The NPC cavalry and soldiers on floor 10 couldn't see the heroes, but these guys can see us clearly. That meant they weren't ordinary NPCs. Even so, as a precaution, Han hadn't killed them yet. At least they were still holding on to half a life. While the team was still discussing it below, a person stepped out above the shrine, likely a priest. The first thing he did was silence all the followers with some kind of magic. Of course, it couldn't get past Ivanka. She quickly recognized it as an amplification spell which allowed his voice to be amplified many times over. Everyone pay attention and keep order. The descendant of the great sun is coming. No one is allowed to cause any more disorder. Han then told everyone to quickly get into the shrine. With events happening on a large platform like this, it was very likely that the person they needed to protect was the main character of the entire ceremony, and of course there were guards blocking the way. Han wanted to confirm if they were indeed the enemies. Destroying the two goddess statues shouldn't have been done, and that's exactly what happened. The system is warning us about level 13 human soldiers. Our only choice now is to push past them. The person we need to protect must definitely be inside the shrine. The battle was swift, but Han told the team there was no need to take down every single enemy. Just get past whoever we can because we're running out of time. We only have a few minutes left. If we don't find that person on time, we're all going to be done for. With that, Han and Eren fought and cleared a path for the team to enter the shrine. Once inside, Ivanka quickly used an object to block the main entrance. Just then, someone inside questioned who the four of them were, but Han quickly caught on. That wasn't the person he was looking for. The chat window hadn't updated, so the target had to be further inside, Han thought to himself, while glancing toward the corridor gate. That hallway must connect to the entrance. Just then, the soldiers broke in, so Han ordered the other three to handle the right flank while he followed behind. He would take the left flank, and just like that, he charged into the hallway alone, thinking about that old man. The guy at the altar wasn't the target either. He remembered the speech mentioned a great descendant of the sun. Could that person be the one this mission is all about? When he reached the top room, Saint Knight Kilovance, Charles, was waiting for him. Enemy of House Charles, as a Saint Knight, it is my duty to show you the wrath of the goddess. Before he could even finish his intro, Han zoomed past him like a gust of wind. Time is limited. Who has the patience to listen to this guy ramble? After reaching the upper floor, he ran around frantically, busting through one door after another, but still no sign of the person he was looking for. With time hanging by a thread, Han finally found her. He knew that behind this flower-filled garden was the person he had been searching for, but he had to get through them first. Those Saint Knights were there together. Outside, under pressure from the priest, the girl known as the Saintess was about to do something. The Saintess asked if there was a problem in the garden, and the priest told her it was just an intruder and that he would handle it so she didn't need to worry as for Han. At that moment, he was struggling against the three knights. He could feel they were on a completely different level than the soldiers below, but their deaths were inevitable. Han gave each of them a taste of his blade one by one. Some lost a leg, some lost their heads, and one even got a sword shoved right into his face. Talk about a team carry. In just a short amount of time, the knights were sent to the goddess's embrace. Just as the Saintess was about to speak, Han appeared, and the priest was shocked to see the intruder. You made it through all those guards. Then the old man used some kind of magic. It looked dangerous, but strangely it wasn't aimed at Han, but at the girl known as the Saintess. At that critical moment, Han rushed in and sliced the old man's head clean off. Even so, the red magic blast was deflected, causing panic and fear among the people below. The girl looked at Han with a worried expression. She thought he was an assassin or someone sent to kill her, but Han's actions proved everything. He immediately shielded her from the countless hidden weapons that were actually being fired in her direction. Without another word, the black-clad assassins launched their attacks, throwing poisoned daggers at the Saintess. But of course, Han rushed in to block them with his own body. After all, if she died, his whole team of 5 would die too, so he had to protect her at all costs. After that, the assassins kept rushing in to gank Han, but Edis provided long-range support from above, and with his agility, Han easily wiped them out. A few minutes later, Edis reached him and said there were 2 more, but he didn't need to worry since the other heroes had already taken care of them. But this Saintess was so naive. She thought everyone was an intruder and tried to shoo Edis and Han away, saying, "Go back now, lady. Are you kidding me? If we leave, you are definitely going to die." She didn't even understand what was happening. Han told her, "If you want to live, follow me. Otherwise, stay here and play with the assassins." The girl hesitated, but then decided to follow Han. As soon as she agreed, the system announced that the mission was complete. Special NPC Frieza's Antlerner has joined the team, and the next main objective is to escape the city with Frieza's Antlerner. Han had already anticipated this, because the 15th floor mission wasn't going to be that easy to clear. He ordered Edis to prepare for a breakout while he held off the enemy. Just then, the other 3 in the team came running in a panic. "Boss, we're out of time! The soldiers are—" gathering down there. Han told the three of them, "Remember this girl, she's the one we need to protect." Among them, Ivanka was the only one who knew who the girl was. They wanted to chat, but who is who doesn't matter anymore. The important thing now is to run for our lives. Edis had already finished preparations. She tied a rope to the railing and everyone would climb down to open an escape route. She suggested the left path. It was the area with the fewest soldiers, and the terrain was complex, making it a great place to hide. Han agreed and set the order: Edis, Aaron, him, Ivanka, and finally Jenna. Just like that, the plan was set. Ivanka would create a wall of fire so the enemy couldn't get close. Aaron and Edith's team will head down first to clear the way. When the soldiers saw Ivanka create a wall of fire, they whispered to each other to take out the mage first, and Han quickly turned to tell Frey, "Sis Ann Larkner, hold on tight so we can get down there." The Saintess saw how handsome and chivalrous Han was, and she seemed to be totally crushing on him. Down there, Aaron and Edith stood on the front lines to hold back the enemy's advance, but unfortunately Aaron was stabbed in the stomach with a dagger, and the poison began to spread rapidly. It was spreading all over his body. Han saw this and was very worried, but Aaron insisted he was still okay, so he said everything was under control, and to stick to the plan, the whole team should head for the left flank. The safety of the team members was secured, so now they just needed to escape with Freeze and Ann Larkner to complete the mission. But those guards were still hot on their heels, yelling, "Catch that witch and those dogs!" The witch they were talking about was Freeze and Ann Larkner. Just as the team was being surrounded, Eddie appeared in the nick of time and told everyone to run this way. Just follow this path. If they make it, the whole team will reach the outskirts. Trailing at the back, Ivanka quickly cast a teleportation spell to collapse the gate and block the soldiers after that nerve-wracking chase. For now, the team is temporarily safe. Han told everyone to take 5 minutes to recover their energy before moving on, knowing Ivanka's barrier wouldn't hold for long. And it won't be long before the soldiers track them down. On top of that, Aaron had been poisoned, so he asked, "Aaron, how's your wound?" Aaron wasn't looking good. The poison was spreading rapidly despite the potion he'd taken, and the pain just wouldn't let up, leaving Jenna worried as she turned to check on him. "Boss, is there any way you can heal him?" Han was stuck, but he suddenly remembered that sometimes certain NPCs possess unique abilities, so he asked Frisian Lagner if she had any skills that might be able to heal Aaron. But she just apologized honestly, hearing that it was clear she was absolutely useless. The team was all worried about Aaron, as a standard HP potion couldn't cure this kind of poisoning. At most, Aaron would probably only be able to move for another 10 minutes. And the team hadn't brought any antidotes along. With no NPCs around capable of healing him, Aaron realized the situation and proactively suggested they leave him behind so he could buy the team some time. He always felt he was too weak and couldn't keep up with everyone, but Jenna disagreed, still wanting the whole team to stick together. As for Ivanka, she had no opinion. She followed Han's decision. Han thought that if he considered efficiency, leaving Aaron behind was the right call, especially since Frisia had no self-defense capabilities. Protecting one more person would be too much for the team. So after a moment of thought, Han made his move. He drank part of his own recovery potion and handed it to Aaron. He said, "It won't heal you, but it will keep your condition from getting any worse," he said. He told everyone to pool all their remaining potions, give them to Aaron, and instructed him to take a dose every 10 minutes. The team would split up and no one would be left behind. The first group would be Edis and Han, tasked with getting Frisia out of there. The second group, Jenna and Ivanka, would be tasked with protecting Aaron until the Saintess successfully escaped. The soldiers would only be targeting Frisia, so the second group just needed to go in the opposite direction of the first to find a safe hideout, and although Aaron wanted to object, he knew the boss's word was law. Since Han had made his decision, he just had to shut up and follow orders. Edis then warned Han that splitting up would be hard to manage, as there would surely be a lot of guards at the exit. She worried that just 2 people wouldn't be enough to successfully protect the Saintess. But nothing was too hard for Han. He had figured out another way if they couldn't escape right away. They would have to blend into the crowd first, then look for a chance to slip out of the city once night fell, detailing the escape plan further because Han's team couldn't face the swarm of guards head-on. Nighttime would be when they were less likely to be spotted by small patrols, allowing them to split up and move stealthily to avoid fighting altogether. And if they weren't fighting, they didn't need a mage in the group. Besides, Ivanka's fire magic drew too much attention, so it was best for her to go with Jenna and Aaron. If a bad situation arose, it would be easier to improvise. Aaron felt guilty and kept apologizing, while Han felt he wasn't doing this for anyone's personal gain. If Jenna and Ivanka were at a disadvantage and couldn't protect Aaron anymore, they shouldn't hesitate to leave him behind. Survival had to be the top priority. The team quickly set off. Han's group went left. Jenna's group went right, and the three, led by Edis, ducked into a slum alleyway where they could hide in the buildings. Seeing that Frisia looked innocent and pretty, an old thug tried to tease her, and of course Edis didn't give him a chance to touch her. She explained that even though this was a slum, it was actually a pretty good place to hide as the streets were like a maze and there were plenty of houses. Edis then took the lead to find a hiding spot. A notification for a long-term quest appeared. In these types of quests, there are sometimes cases where the mission drags on longer than usual even if the hero logs out. The heroes still continue their work, and Han thought that the master must be bored watching, so they probably logged out of the game already. As for that little girl, she looked very worried, but she still managed to stay calm. Han thought she wasn't just some ordinary kid because a normal person would have refused to follow them from the start. Of course she realized that in this chaotic situation. Following Han's team was the only path to survival. Not long after, Edis found a pretty good hiding spot with a back door that would make escaping easier, and she was very cautious. She set traps at the entrance just to be safe. But then she didn't rest. She immediately went back out to look for an exit, telling Han that he just needed to stay behind and protect the Saintess. Stuck in the room with the girl, Han started to feel a bit bored. He thought he should have swapped places with Jenna in a place like this. He didn't have much to do and was feeling restless. But while he was thinking, the girl suddenly spoke up to introduce herself. It turned out she was the second heir to the Empire. But by now, you guys probably know what kind of guy Han is. Even if she was a pretty girl, he was still very cold. His philosophy was probably that you shouldn't trust anyone, even a beauty, so he didn't really care who she was. She just wanted to talk, but Han didn't want to answer. Han thought that even if he did talk, she wouldn't understand, and then she asked if he came from a place she didn't know. Are you perhaps the heroes who saved Nelsa? Hearing this, Han suddenly recalled that Nelsa was the name of the city on the 9th floor, which he had heard the NPCs whispering about before. Han pondered as the Saintess was convinced she was right. She had seen them in her dreams where warriors fought tirelessly to protect the city. Though she couldn't clearly see anyone's face, she had a feeling Han was one of those warriors. And the survivors of Nelsa had recounted that if not for those heroes, the city would have fallen. But they also couldn't see the heroes' faces. The Saintess had repeated those dreams many times, and what was disturbing was that everything was destroyed. The Empire, the cities of the 4 great families, and villages and towns large and small all across the continent were swallowed by a sea of fire. She was certain that if things continued like this, then the continent would meet its end. And she shared that in reality, many abnormal things were happening across the continent. Plagues, parasites, and monsters. She believed the invasion of Nelsa was also a part of it. Monsters usually don't invade human lands like that. And the reason she confided in Han was that she wanted him to give her the strength to save the world. Han was like, what the hell, why ask me for help? Meanwhile, she was a princess possessing great power, and surely had many knights under her command. But the Saintess replied sadly that she was only a princess in name and otherwise just a puppet. Furthermore, no one would listen to her or follow her orders. Han advised her that if she had money, she should hire some mercenaries, and she immediately jumped at the chance to make a deal. Han would be her mercenary, and she would pay him whatever he wanted as she lacked nothing but freedom. Naturally, Han disagreed, thinking that if she had that kind of money, she could surely find someone better than him. He refused, but she kept trying to negotiate. He thought she was a bit of a nuisance. He was someone who knew well that even if he wanted to help, it wouldn't change anything. Besides, this girl was just an NPC, and when the mission ended, there would be nothing left for them to work together on. Freeze wanted to ask the reason for his refusal, and he didn't hesitate to explain she might laugh at this. We come from another world. Han thought that since there was nothing to do until nightfall anyway, telling the Saintess a little bit probably wouldn't hurt. To him, it was a truly garbage place. We came here because of a mission in that other world. We were assigned tasks, and if we didn't complete them, we would die. This time we had to protect someone we didn't even know who it was at first, but then we realized it was you. If we couldn't protect you, we would die, and we are obligated to return to our own world once the mission is completed. That is the reason I cannot help you. And Freeze, after listening to Han's thorough explanation, even though she felt it was a bit absurd, she still believed him because he hadn't laughed at her story, so she would trust him too. At this point, she finally gave up on the idea of recruiting Han to help and wanted to take care of saving the continent on her own. Han wondered if she was the one who had called everyone to the plaza. Not quite. He learned she had planned to give a speech there to increase her influence. Currently, she was nothing compared to her brother's power. Han then thought about the mission. If it weren't for them, this girl would have surely perished here. If every mission in the game Pick Me Up held its own meaning and was closely linked, then surely Freezy was an NPC worth saving. Thinking this, he told Freeze his name and then left. A while later, he returned with a new set of clothes for Freeze, replacing her outfit, which was no different than a billboard to the guards. He told her it was best to just throw that outfit in the trash. Once she changed clothes, Han told her that the three of them would leave in about 2 to 3 hours, so she should go to sleep. Right now, his team still had time because if anything happened to Eren, he would receive a notification about an abnormal status, and since there wasn't one yet, it meant nothing had happened. Just had to hang on a little longer. A few hours later, night finally fell, and just in time, Edis returned after observing the situation outside. She had found an escape route for the three of them, but there was still one more problem. The three of them quickly headed toward the gate. The problem Edis mentioned was right there. There were a total of 22 knights and soldiers guarding this gate. And the other gates were the same. If it were just Edis and Han, they could pass easily, but bringing the kid Freeze along made it a bit more difficult. Furthermore, the level of the lead knight was level 21, at least 5 levels higher than the knights Han had faced before. Han then continued planning with Edis. He told Edis to go back to the slums to find Freeze's dress and tiara. Then find Jenna and tell her to put them on. Han wanted to use Jenna as a decoy because currently he couldn't know how much longer Eren could hold out. If Jenna disguised herself as the princess and caused a commotion, surely some of the soldiers here would leave. This plan was a bit cruel to Jenna's group, but there was no other way. Edis quickly followed orders and rushed back to the slums, and as for Han, he also ditched his shield. This equipment was too easy to spot and carried the risk of reflecting light. After that, he instructed Freeze to stay put for about an hour, and he would wait outside. Only when he gave the signal should she run out. Francis felt extremely worried for Han, perhaps after this moment, whether they succeeded or failed. So she and he would no longer be journeying together, and with a final farewell, Han flew off to complete a mission elsewhere, while things weren't looking any better for Jenna's group. Eren had run out of medicine and was in critical condition. Now the three of them could only do one thing, pray that Han's group would make it through the gate quickly. Before Eren couldn't hold on any longer just as Edis found him. Arriving at the slums, Han was scouting the guards at the gate, determined to get out before dawn, but the very thing he feared was already happening. The system sent a message updating Eren's status. He had been poisoned with a potent toxin, and his condition was rapidly deteriorating. Han knew his responsibilities as the team leader. He knew what he had to do if Jenna were caught while disguised. The guards would swarm her and put everyone in danger, so he decided to draw the enemy's attention. He took the heat to protect the team, and during the action, he learned a new skill, silent movement. Meanwhile, over at Jenna's side, Edis had just arrived in the nick of time with the disguise. Han had now reached the gate, waiting for the right moment. Once the signal went off, the guards would move elsewhere, but in the worst-case scenario, he would have to fight them all at once. Finally, not letting Han down, a signal fire lit up, marking the perfect opportunity. A soldier reported that they had found the princess, in a white dress and crown, just as described. The leader hurried off, taking 18 men to reinforce the search, leaving only 4 guards behind. But the real problem was the purple-haired knight who was still standing there. Although there was some hesitation, it didn't matter much. He fought fast and hard, charging in with his sword. In just 6 seconds, 3 regular guards had fallen to his blade. Now only one opponent remained, the knight with superior strength right in front of him, and the knight quickly drew his sword to attack. As Han sized him up, he realized with his current strength he couldn't pierce that armor. So he would have to strike for the gaps, even though he didn't have many. He knew it was dangerous, but there was no time left to calculate power levels, and they clashed. After trading a few blows, Han started to catch on. The knight wasn't even attacking. Even when Han left himself wide open, the guy didn't even bother to counter. He knew that by just dragging it out, Han would lose. At that moment, the notification about his teammate's critical condition came in, and Han snapped like a demon, fighting with everything he had. Han's current power level was 40, and if he couldn't pierce the armor, then he would switch tactics and focus on breaking the knight's armor instead. But all his efforts didn't change a thing. Meanwhile, Ivanka had also lost control of her mana from using too much magic. At this point, there was no time left, so he ordered Freeze to run. Just run for your life, go straight through the gate, follow the road, and don't look back. She would make it out. Han used all his remaining strength to open a path for Freeze, but the knight spotted the target and started chasing after the princess. However, he wasn't alone. A hidden assassin suddenly appeared and attacked Freeze. It looked like the princess was done for. But once again, Han rushed in to take the blow for her, taking the poisoned dagger, yet he still shouted for her to keep running. Don't stop. The system also notified the master that the whole team was in danger. The knight, seeing Han injured, seized the opportunity and went on the offensive. With just one strike, Han was completely overwhelmed, but it didn't seem too bad yet. He had still managed to deal a decent amount of damage to the knight. But there was no time to celebrate. The assassin attacked the fleeing Freeze again, but he caught up just in time to kick the knight away and rushed after the assassin. He sent that backstabbing assassin straight to the afterlife. After dealing with him, he returned to the fight with the knight. Han was slowly gaining the upper hand. After wounding him for the first time, he finally delivered the finishing blow, raising his blade high to send the knight to join the assassin. Even though he had successfully wiped out all the enemies on his side, his body was covered in wounds and the poison was spreading rapidly through his veins. He looked into the distance and saw that Freeze had escaped through the gate. He thought it was time to say goodbye. He felt like he had no strength left at all. Like this, he would probably be heading to that team meeting with the knight. All 5 of them couldn't just sacrifice themselves like this? Of course not. With every step Freeze took, the whole team saw the dawn once more. The system announced that the target had escaped the city, and the whole team was recalled to the waiting lobby. Honestly, they had been closer to death than ever before. Jenna was terrified, thinking she was a goner. She angrily criticized Han for forcing her to wear that ridiculous outfit. Do you have any idea how many soldiers were trying to hunt me down? Despite being yelled at, Han just kept a straight face, praising everyone for doing a great job. No one had died, and the mission was a complete success. Wasn't that wonderful? Right at that moment, the master successfully saved the video and disconnected. I bet he's posting screenshots online right now bragging about this achievement. As for Edis, she said her goodbyes to everyone and headed back to her own squad. She never intended to stay here for long anyway, and I'm sure the master will just find someone else to replace her. Han thanked Edis for everything, especially the decoy plan. He wouldn't have been able to pull it off without her. She has such a deep understanding of squad tactics and scouting. Han was the MVP, but he felt Edis was the one who truly carried the team through this mission. As for Ivanka, she scolded Han for nearly getting them all killed, then declared it was time for a break. She was wiped out. The only one who hadn't said a word this whole time was Aaron. Seeing that, Jenna quickly tried to cheer him up, telling him not to be sad, that it was just bad luck, and he wasn't a burden at all. Even so, Aaron apologized to Han, and he knew exactly what his own limits were. He questioned whether this was really the right path. He couldn't guarantee that something like this wouldn't happen again, and from the training sessions, he felt that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't catch up to the others. The gap between him and the rest of the group was growing by the day. However, Han didn't care at all about Aaron's rambling and just walked away, leaving him behind. But in reality, Han was secretly blaming himself. We did suffer heavy losses because of Aaron. If he hadn't gotten injured, we wouldn't have ended up in such a dangerous situation. But I was the one who chose to save his life. My poor judgment put everyone in danger. Aaron is currently level 14, so the level gap isn't that wide. But the stat growth rate is completely different. Jenna and I gain 5 or even 6 stat points per level up, but Aaron's stats never budge. When you look at his skill set, it's even worse. He has decent basic combat skills, but doesn't know how to utilize them well. Right now, what he has is just barely enough. But in the long run, the gap will only keep widening. Eventually, he'll be left behind either due to a lack of skill or because he loses his life. We don't have much time left while we're on these missions. I can't keep supporting him forever. He just doesn't have the talent. Han thought he couldn't just abandon Aaron since they had been through so much together, but he also couldn't be so irrational as to keep a useless member on the team. Eventually, he'll be left behind, and that won't be anyone's fault. The following days, everyone continued to train. The master wouldn't be sending heroes to the tower. For a while, this time Han stopped forcing Ivanka to train so strictly. From now on, she could train on her own without following a rigid schedule. Everyone was given 4 days off like a holiday. Han asked Jenna and Aaron what they planned to do during their time off. Jenna replied immediately, "I'm just staying home, boss. I'll be in bed from morning till night." It was just like one of our Sundays. Han told everyone to get some rest. But as for him, he kept right on training. Good grief, this guy is relentless. He was still running around the yard with 22 pounds of weights on. Han thought if he didn't wear those weights, he wouldn't be able to grow any further. His physical capabilities had already hit the human limit. Perhaps this was the intervention point that ISO had mentioned to him before. After he sent the manual to the SCD, the atmosphere in the waiting room changed completely. The low-ranking heroes who used to compete just to stay alive were now much more relaxed. That's because there was no longer a need to act that way. While the SCD stopped fusing anyone, 2 people approached him while he was training. They were new recruits who had been rotated in, and one of them was very curious about those rumors. The blue-haired one said to Han, "When I first arrived in the waiting room, I heard some interesting things. Rumors say you don't care who we were in the past, and whether we were trash or nobility, as long as we're useful, we should prove it." He was very intrigued by those words and was dying to prove his worth. He said he even enjoyed life or death battles. However, his expression suddenly shifted when he heard the group of people rambling outside. I'm listening to those scum who aren't even worth as much as dogs or pigs out there laughing and joking. Must be nice. Turns out he's Velkis, a second-generation hero but a bit of a mutation. He volunteers for training even without the need for fusion, kind of like Eren. And of course, he's very talented. This time, Velkis came to ask for Han's opinion. He really wanted to teach those guys he considers useless trash a lesson to show off his own worth. Han told him not to get involved. He still stubbornly wanted to do it anyway. At that moment, Han looked at him with such a terrifying gaze that the guy drew his sword back and blurted out, "Man, you're scary as hell. My bad, I'm sorry." Everything you said earlier was a lie, wasn't it, about proving yourself? I remember there's a very convenient function for cleaning up trash called fusion, right? But it seems the master isn't using it anymore. Han just replied coldly, "Just do what you have to do. You'll see the results soon enough." After saying that, the two of them quietly walked away. For Han, principles are principles. You don't just use fusion whenever you feel like it. That was the rule he followed while managing Nihime and when Loki announced his method. The master tried to copy it, but everyone failed. Fear is one of the biggest motivators. Without the threat of fusion, heroes won't listen to the master anymore. Many of them have become lazy and just do whatever they want. Not following the master's orders is the reason why so few heroes are active right now, even though the number of heroes has grown quite large. Han ran into Enoch, a carpenter who had just returned from the daily dungeon. Seeing him heading to the warehouse alone, Han asked what was going on, and from Enoch he learned that nobody else was actually working. They just grabbed a few random branches and spent the whole day messing around. That's why poor Enoch had to do all the work by himself. This place has really changed a lot. Back then, people were dying all the time here. It's becoming a better place now, isn't it? Enoch wondered aloud. Han didn't answer, just looked toward the master's level. Master should have realized the situation was going south by now, right? The hero's efficiency is plummeting fast. He thought there were two ways to solve it. One is mass fusion, which would wipe out most of the second-generation heroes. But while work efficiency would improve, obviously, if you abuse it, the stress levels would skyrocket. The second way is to create a new source of motivation instead of just fear. Meanwhile, the master had also been researching how to expand the waiting room, and now many more facilities could be built. Perhaps things were still progressing as expected. Seeing this, Han guessed that a new team would probably form soon. While he was thinking, Eren suddenly appeared. He had just finished training with Eddie and wanted to challenge Han to a sparring match. Han was worried Eren wouldn't even last a minute. He advised Eren that just trying hard doesn't automatically make you stronger. Just then, in the ISO Plaza, the master issued a summons for all heroes to gather. Once everyone had assembled, she announced, "Everyone head to the warehouse. We're going to be doing some major renovations here. And if you don't help clean up, you might just disappear." As soon as ISO finished speaking, an earthquake struck, causing everyone to panic. The entire lobby area expanded and upgraded just like the last time. From the dining hall to the training grounds, everything was leveled up to 3. Even so, Han reminded them that something they didn't expect was about to happen, completely contrary to Han's own worries. Jenna quickly reassured everyone, saying, "Don't worry so much, guys. The master is just building us a new facility. We started out in a dump after all, so now the facilities are finally being developed." Upon hearing that the others, everyone couldn't stop grinning, excited about the better living space. It's true what they say, sometimes you really can get something for nothing. A while later, ISO announced the system upgrade was complete. Everyone could finally go outside, and what hit their eyes was a magnificent sight beyond imagination. The entire territory had been transformed. Everything was on a different level. 2-story buildings were appearing everywhere, and the training center had reached level 3. This way, the heroes would train much more efficiently. The baths and recreation areas were also finished. The heroes were very satisfied to have a place to rest after tiring missions. The quality of the canteen was better too, and the heroes would get to enjoy much tastier food. Everyone immediately wanted to check out the rooms, especially Jenna, who only cared about the baths. But when they got inside the main area, they were in for a shock. All the essential items in the room were gone. The sofa, the heater, the dining table, and even the beds. There was absolutely nothing left. That's when Han pointed toward the stairs and asked, "Can't you guys see the stairs? There's a second floor now. Go up and take a look." Just as Han said, up on the second floor, everything looked like it belonged to royalty. It was in a different league compared to the first floor. Everyone started clamoring, asking how to register for their own rooms. They thought room registration was very important, and they started arguing loudly. Everyone wanted their room to be on the second floor. Of course, things aren't that easy. ISO then called everyone to the second-floor plaza. The master would assign rooms to each person. A moment later, ISO began the announcement there would be a total of 35 rooms on the second floor. She would read off the names of those who would be assigned rooms there. First was Team 1, totaling 4 people. They were all assigned to the second floor and could choose their rooms as they pleased. And of course, Team 2 was the same. There were plenty of rooms, so they could choose freely. Next were Chloe, Enoch, Hunter, Patrick, and Amarine, who also got rooms on the second floor. Everyone whose name wasn't called had to stay on the first floor. Naturally, upon hearing that announcement, everyone below started voicing their objections. Jenna had the same question as everyone else. She didn't understand why, even though there were still many rooms left on the second floor, at least 30 more people could have fit. So why weren't the rest allowed to stay there? Up until now, all the heroes had lived the same way, even if their individual efforts and progress differed. But the rewards were always the same. That management style works well when there are few heroes and the master is actively using fusion on them. But to upgrade the waiting room, you need real separation. Dividing them like this feels just like nobles versus peasants. Ivanka explained that this is exactly how the master intends to control the heroes in the waiting room. Instead of just grouping everyone together, he's categorized the residents. Those who contribute and are useful are treated like nobles, while the lazy ones, well, they aren't. The useless ones stay on the first floor and are treated like the common peasants you're used to. Jenna still didn't quite get it, so Han explained further. At the very least, she still wakes up early to get to the center. She trains and practices until nightfall. Plus, she hunts to gather resources in the dungeon every single day. More than half the meat we consume comes from her hunts. She nails her missions every single time without fail. And those other idiots, they don't do a damn thing yet. They still scream and demand special treatment. ISO was fuming by now. I can't stand these deadbeats anymore. So she unleashed a nuclear punch to put them in their place. She warned them, if I hear one more complaint, I won't hold back next time. Now get lost. After that, not a soul dared to say a word. ISO's fists definitely carry some weight. She turned to Chloe and Amarine, instructing them, you two are just the chefs. Focus on handling the food for the residents on the second floor. As for the first floor, they're banned from eating meat. Fresh potatoes are fine, you can eat them however you want. Still, a few of them had more guts than brains. One guy from the second generation, clearly clueless about how high the sky is, wanted to rush forward and pick a fight with Izor. But in a split second, his arm was no longer attached to his body. You'd think it was Izor doing the punishing, but nope, it was actually that guy Velkist who turned him into a one-armed bandit. If Izor had been the one to strike, that guy wouldn't even have a life left, let alone an arm. Not to mention, after Velkist sliced the guy's arm off, he even bragged about it, asking, as long as I didn't kill him, it's fine, right? Let's rewind a few days back to when Velkist first arrived here. He'd heard stories about Han and was very interested in him. This is Alan. He told Velkist, if you want to get used to this place, you'd better follow the rules. And don't worry about Team 1 or Team 2. They're absolute monsters. Velkist said he'd already seen them training. If training is all it takes to get that strong, then he was confident he could compete with Aaron. He was also curious about Han's power, but honestly, what would Alan know? He only heard rumors about Han through Jenna. Out of everyone in Team 1, Jenna is the most sociable. She actually talks to people unlike the others in that group. After chatting for a while, Velkist realized that synthesis helps players get stronger after every battle and gain more skills through training. And the current king of this place is Han. That's why in this moment, Velkist did what he did to prove his own worth. Izor was furious at Velkist's actions, but he didn't seem to care at all. Velkist said, from what I know, there's a system designed to clear out the trash quite efficiently, but it seems Matter isn't using it anymore. How strange. And with that, he tossed the arm back to the guy. His arm can actually reattach itself if you just press it back on. The severed part will knit together on its own. The guy was absolutely terrified. He honestly had no idea that was possible, because he'd never done it before, after such a savage display. Velkist acted all arrogant. I've been here just to witness this interesting little event. I really enjoyed that. Now I'm a bit bored. Anyone else want to get their arm chopped off like this? If not, then stop complaining about everything. Even though everyone was wary, someone still spoke up and called Velkist a psycho. Velkist just gave a cold laugh in response. I'd rather be a psycho than a useless pig. Han, having watched Velkist act like a lunatic for long enough, finally spoke up. He didn't want him interfering in stuff like this anymore. Afterwards, he felt a bit of pity for the guy who got his arm chopped off. Because if Velkist hadn't acted first, Izor probably would have crushed his skull. Well, every cloud has a silver lining. Of course, Izor wasn't going to let Velkist's arrogance slide. She told Velkist and his group that they had to stay on the first floor too. He already knew that much, but he was confident his group would be moved up to the second floor before long. Exhausted, Izor gave one final warning. "I'll summarize this one last time so you idiots can understand. Out of 35 people, only 13 get to stay on the second floor. The other 22 stay on the first. Those on the second floor can use the buildings here however they like. Naturally, those on the first floor cannot. If you try to sneak up to the second floor, you're all dead. If you want to move up, you have to improve your skills and experience." As she said that, she pointed at Han. "This is the perfect example for everyone to follow." Izor proudly praised Han as an invincible super trump card. Everyone should learn from him. As for Han to shut the chatty ISO up, he pinched her cheeks to keep her from talking further. He added a few words to boost everyone's morale. "If you want to live the good life, then show off the skills you've got. Matter is watching all of you. If he thinks you're good enough, he'll let you go up to the second floor." But the low-level heroes here protested. They said it was too hard that they were all dragged here against their will, and now they have to live like this. It was hard to accept. Hearing that, Velkist's hands got itchy and he reached for his sword, but one glare from Han stopped him cold. Han added, "I'm just like all of you. We were all forced into this. The reality is everyone has to learn to fight or do something useful." That's right, Jenna is the one who talks to everyone the most. I'm sure her words will help them see the light. That's gotta be it. We didn't even have any food before that. And a single mistake means getting sent to be synthesized. Do you guys think we practice all day just for fun? Everything comes with a price. To put it simply, you guys need to get good at fighting. Support players and gatherers aren't really needed yet. Most of them are fighters anyway. And a small fraction of the talented ones will move up to the second floor. Right now, half of them are accepting this. The other half is still resisting. Han thinks maybe things are getting worse because they've grown accustomed to their previous luxury. Suddenly, a fat guy stood up and cursed right to Han's face, saying it was outrageous to force them to fight while treating them like trash, and they were adamant about not accepting it. Velkis gave a cold laugh and said that even if they were well-fed, that fat guy wouldn't fight anyway, but on top of that, that fat guy also claimed he knew the secret Han was hiding, the way to make the master change their mind. Iso heard that and froze solid, staring blankly with a stunned look on her face. There was nothing left to say to an idiot like him. He said, "I know the master can't lay a hand on us. You must have been trying to hide that, right? But we know everything now. Risking our lives and fighting monsters just to live comfortably, huh? That's absolutely insane." After that, the whole group started listening to the fat guy collectively refusing to fight. And just like that, Team 4 and Team 5 stopped working, causing a massive strike. Facing that scene, Han, standing nearby, could only shake his head in annoyance. He threw his sword toward the crowd and told them they'd better cut off one of their own arms. If you cut it off like he did, you won't have to die anymore. Of course, that group wasn't going to listen to such an absurd order. But the absurd ones here were actually them. They believed they could resist the master's command, thinking that no one here could threaten their lives. These words made Han laugh internally. That part wasn't wrong. Heroes do have the right to disobey the master, and Iso can't touch a hero unless it's a special situation. At this moment, Edis also explained that if they didn't obey, their lives would be in danger because they weren't in the same position as the others. Edith genuinely tried to warn them, but this bunch of idiots who were both stupid and dangerous still gave her attitude just moments later. The door to the synthesis room opened for the first time in a long while, and 3 names were called out in succession: Velkis, Alan, and Leslie. Move inside. But these guys were experiencing synthesis for the first time. They stood there in a confused daze, making it very difficult for Iso to drag them into the synthesis room. And of course, only one of the 3 came back out. That person was none other than Velkis, who had trained hard with the desire to take Aaron's place in the first team. As for Alan and Leslie, they had returned to the Earth. By now, Velkis had stepped out, becoming crazed, feeling like it wasn't enough and wanting to see even more sacrifices. Facing that scene, the fat guy from before finally understood what synthesis was. His face at that moment could be described as bloodless. Before anyone could even worry, the next 3 names were called out. They were Nerissa, Oliver, and Gooter. Gooter, terrified, grabbed the fat guy by the collar and kept cursing at him, asking why he said nothing would happen, and now he was the one being synthesized. Who has the time to care? Who told you to believe an idiot? I'm sure everyone can guess the result of this synthesis. The one who stepped out was Nerissa. Seeing that the fat guy immediately shouted, "We'll stop the strike!" He was terrified that if he was any slower, he would be the one taken to be synthesized. But of course it didn't end there. Other names were called out one after another. The remaining ones then scrambled in a panic to beg Han for help, knowing he could communicate with the master. So they hoped he could put in a good word. Of course, Han wasn't someone who would see someone die and not help. He could save them if they could cut off their own arms. If they couldn't even do that, then they were better off disappearing like the previous 4. But of course, cutting off an arm isn't easy. Some of them didn't hesitate and tried to chop off their own hands, but almost all of them failed. To cut it off in one go, they needed enough sword skill or a high enough strength stat. Otherwise, they could only slowly hack away at it. And naturally, no one could do what Han said. Eventually, everyone had been synthesized. Now it was Han's and the fat guy's turn. Of course, the result goes without saying. The fat guy was synthesized by Han. After the synthesis, there were only 25 heroes left here. Just then, a voice rang out from somewhere. "You crazy people! Enough, you monsters!" Velgast heard that, and true to his hot-headed nature, went straight to deal with the bastard who said that. He always saw those people as just loudmouths who knew how to bark. Only Han could stay calm in every situation. After that, the master started using the 10-time summon, but since these summons were free, most of them would be 1-star heroes. Now it would depend on the ranking. The places they were summoned to would be different. The free heroes would be on the first floor, while higher-tier heroes would be on the second. The selection process would begin soon. Through this process, at least 2 people would die, and a few would move up to the second floor. Han spoke to his team members at this moment, telling them not to be complacent just because they were on the second floor. We could be dragged down too? Now that we've reached the second floor, the third isn't far off. As the floors continue to rise, the rankings will change accordingly. It's been 2 days since the system upgrade. Jenna and Han are enjoying breakfast. The food on the second floor is definitely much tastier and more lavish, or maybe it just tastes better because there are fewer people eating here. Chloe and Amarine are constantly busy preparing food for 30 people at once. It seems their skills have leveled up. Han eats while pondering the situation back on the first floor. They're probably still fighting down there. The view from the second floor is super nice too. Han can get a full overview of everything from his new living space. You can see the second floor from anywhere, so if anyone is dissatisfied, it might just give them a goal to aim higher. After finishing breakfast, Han headed to the training area. When he arrived, he saw Aaron training early. The guy must have only slept for 3 or 4 hours. Han just thinks it's insane. The biggest change in the training grounds after hitting level 3 is that there are now rooms for individual training and sparring. The individual training rooms can be locked from the inside, so Han can practice his transformation early in the morning without anyone finding out. As for the sparring arena, it doesn't have the recovery effects, like the waiting room, meaning heroes can fight in realistic conditions, and if they get seriously injured, they have to be dragged out. Naturally, since the facilities have been upgraded, the team has been too. The current worry is who will fill the empty spots in Team 1 and Team 2. Right now, Han only sees 2 people with potential Velkist and Nerissa. Han weighs in on Velkist's personality. He's too aggressive and reckless, but also very talented. The wild nature skill he unlocked yesterday has a rarity of less than 1%. It's a passive skill that turns anger and fear into combat power, but it's extremely compatible with transformation skills. In contrast to Velkist, Nerissa lacks a bit of combat power, but she's calm and level-headed. She's excellent at stealth, camouflage, shape-shifting, and so on, so if she's nurtured, she'll become a top-tier thief. Besides these 2 to Han, everyone else isn't worth mentioning. After observing for a while, Han finally stepped onto the training ground. This time, Velkist wants to spar with Han. "Can you teach me a thing or two, senior? There's nothing here but a bunch of losers who can't even take a single hit from me." Han replied that if he calls his own teammates losers, he's really no different from them. The battle that followed was extremely difficult, but only for Velkist. Every one of his attacks couldn't even touch Han, while Han landed just 1 kick that left him severely injured, even so with the instincts of a wild beast. Isn't that exactly what makes for a good training session? The next day, Team 1 was summoned. ISO announced that the Master had ordered Team 1 to the dungeon. Exploration dungeons, daily dungeons, and raid dungeons. Those are the 3 types of content heroes. Them gain access to in the space-time rift. Han secretly thought exploration dungeons were unlocked after floor 10, but it wasn't until they cleared floor 15 that his team was sent. Out there. Just then, ISO urged them, "There's no time to rest anymore. The space-time rift has opened. Let's head down to the first floor." Even though he didn't know what that exploration dungeon was, it would probably take a day or 2 to explore. Before entering the portal, the Master gave each person some travel funds. Each person was given 3 gold coins to complete the mission. Everyone happily accepted. Only Han reminded them not to be complacent. This might very well be payment for the combat to come. Very quickly, the four of them were transported to the Him Peninsula, and the place they arrived at was none other than Nelsa the city that fell on the 10th floor. Back then, everything here was chaotic. The forests were burned to ash and bodies were piled up, but now it was the complete opposite. Ivanka sighed. We've been through so much that this doesn't even surprise me anymore. A feature of exploration dungeons is that heroes can't be sure what the objective is. Many times you might end up going home empty-handed. But sometimes they bring back something truly amazing. Han was certain that this time the NPCs here could actually see them. That was indeed the case. As they prepared to enter the city, Han's team was stopped by the gate guards demanding to see their travel permits. Han didn't hesitate to toss him 1 gold coin. Is this enough for a permit? Of course that's more than enough for a lifetime. It's true, no matter what world you're in, money is always the ultimate lubricant. After getting into the city, Han assigned tasks to everyone. He said he was assigning tasks, but this time he told everyone to just take it easy, gather information, but do it however they liked. Money was no longer an issue. Everyone had their travel funds, so he wanted them to go eat some good food and enjoy the scenery. As for everything else, he would handle it. Everyone had an incredulous look on their faces. Is this really our usual team leader? Ivanka was afraid he might change his mind, so she quickly left. I'm going far away from this city, don't stop me, I'm going to go far, far away to look at the ocean. Han told them all to go. We'll meet at the waiting hall in 2 days. Aaron heard this and didn't hesitate to go have some fun too, while Jenna wanted to follow Han but was bluntly refused. 2 days from now, they'll meet back at the lobby. Aaron, hearing this, didn't hesitate and headed out to enjoy himself while Jenna tried to tag along with Han, only to be flatly rejected. After walking around for a bit, Han found it quite strange, because there were too many mercenaries around. While he was wondering why, suddenly the wanted posters on the wall caught his attention, and the main person on the wanted notice was Princess Freeze, the person he had protected during the 15th floor mission. According to the information written there, the Imperial forces had pinned every crime imaginable on her heresy, summoning demons, slandering the royalty, murder, arson, theft, and even sexual assault. What a joke. How could a girl who was only 15 years old possibly do all those things? Aren't those people going a bit too far? A descendant of a prestigious family who committed serious crimes and was exiled from the royal bloodline, a former princess who has now become a fugitive hunted across the entire country. Not only that, but anyone who finds her gets a huge reward. At that moment, a kid noticed Han acting curious about the notice board and guessed he was a bounty hunter. Are you aiming for that witch too? You're dreaming. It's impossible. Even the best hunters haven't been able to find her after searching all 6 regions. Han was confused as to why the kid called her a witch, but was told she rips out the hearts of infants as sacrifices and uses forbidden black magic. They say she even summoned beings that weren't meant to be called. Han knew these were just rumors, but he was still curious to know the details. Naturally, the kid refused, saying he was super busy. Han got the hint and fished out 1 gold coin, and suddenly the kid became the freest person in the city. They continued their conversation at a small shop. According to the kid, Freeze used to be the heir to the throne, but now she's been stripped of her title and there's been a warrant out for her arrest for a year. Han was baffled he had parted ways with Freeze less than a week ago on the 15th floor, yet a whole year had passed in this city. Looking at the symbol on the wanted poster, he realized it matched the mark on the armor of those guys he'd skewered. Piecing everything together, the warrant was issued right when Freeze escaped the city, and now she's likely wandering around somewhere. Next, Han asked about the monsters. He learned they hadn't appeared for the last 2 years. The last time the goblins showed up, the council handled it, and there was more. The kid mentioned an epidemic that made the monsters increase in number, and the weather turn colder. But the strangest things were the dungeons that started a few years back. Ruin-like structures started popping up all over the continent, so they called them dungeons. The weird thing is, some people can get in and some can't. Rumor has it that there's a mysterious stone at the end of every dungeon. If you get it, you gain special power. Han immediately thought that if it's a stone providing special power, it has to be an attribute stone, the source of power for the hero's seal. It's their 3rd type of ability right after stats and skills. Not wanting to miss the chance, Han told the kid to take him to the dungeon. It was obvious enough since there were so many mercenaries here. It meant they were all focused on a single goal. And of course, the kid was promised a reward if he could get Han to that dungeon. Very quickly, the 2 of them arrived at the dungeon's location. On the way, Han ran into many mercenaries coming out covered in wounds. It was clear that conquering this dungeon was no easy feat. The dungeon was right next to the church in the city center, appearing right after the invasion. Beyond the gate was the entrance, but there were plenty of guards outside. If you want to get in, you need an entry pass. These passes are traded for money or a cut of the treasure if you find any in the dungeons, according to the guards and hunters. After explaining, the kid hurriedly said goodbye to Han, saying if he needed anything else later, just find him as long as he had money, though he didn't say where to find him. The kid probably didn't want to see Han ever again. Han looked inside and saw that people were bringing a huge amount of gear to enter the dungeon. It was highly likely they planned to stay in there for more than a few days. He thought he should probably investigate another time, since the other team members were off on their own vacation somewhere. However, Han had nothing to do right now, so he was a bit bored. After watching for another half hour, he noticed the mercenaries glancing left and right with worried expressions. They were hesitant. No one wanted to head in because it seemed like less than 10% could actually pass through the barrier. But if a team leader could get in, the whole team would get through. Han was confident he could make it. While he was thinking, the kid from before came back panting as if he'd been chased by a dog. It turned out he had gone to get the gold coin appraised. He was shocked that its value was so high. "You trying to squeeze more out of me, kid?" "No way, big brother." Of course, once he realized this guy was loaded, he had to stick around. The kid explained, "I'm not asking for more, this one's on the house. Do you want to experience the service I mentioned earlier? Or I can be your guide, I know lots of cool places." Han found it a bit annoying he'd already said no, but the kid kept pestering him. After asking, he found out that Han reminded the kid of his little brother. Among the kids he played with, one looked just like Han, with black hair and black eyes. That was the real reason he'd started talking to him in the first place. However, just as the kid was about to say his brother's name, Han told him not to say it. "It's best if you keep that to yourself, kid. Just take me to the blacksmith, that's enough." After that, the kid led him to a shop. Coincidentally, Jenna was also there. She was there to pick out a new bow. This new longbow cost a whopping 2 gold coins. Hearing Jenna shouting about 2 gold coins, Han immediately opened his info panel to check. It was definitely junk. The thing looked luxurious on the outside but had 0 practical use. Plus, it was enchanted, but only with a basic durability enhancement spell. He explained it to her and told her to return it immediately, and go find something worth the money instead. This is the elemental stone, the exact material needed to craft level-up stones. Han said confidently that once he brings these back, the master blacksmith is going to love them. Plus, there are a few other rare stones here, too. Honestly, that gear is top tier, but Jenna refuses to pick it up and keeps going for junk. Han tells her to toss that trashy bow and grab a rebirth stone instead. It's an item that lets people re-experience missions. The boss stage has been deactivated since it was already cleared. You won't get any experience points, but you do get mission completion XP. Jenna wonders out loud who that kid following them is. Han couldn't care less, and just walks off. Noticing Jenna's curiosity, the kid tags along, introducing himself as Josh, Han's guide. Annoyed, Han tosses his last gold coin to the boy, just to get him to buzz off. Josh stares at the gold coin in his hands, eyes sparkling, thanking him for the investment. He's so young, but already talking about startup investments. He doesn't say what he's investing in, but later on, he vows to pay Han back with interest. Han doesn't care, just keeps walking, but tosses a final instruction over his shoulder. If Josh really wants to repay him, he should help out the witches. If the chance ever arises. Josh is left confused watching Han's back disappear into the crowd, not knowing which witch he's talking about. Jenna is just as clueless as Josh. As Han lets slip, the witch he meant is Frisia, the princess the team rescued. The two keep wandering around, and before long the whole squad gathers back at the waiting hall. Ivanka complains about not being able to reach the beach. It seems that area hasn't been unlocked yet. Basically, the Him Peninsula is huge, but in these missions, heroes can't leave a set perimeter. Exploring dungeons unlocks new regions every 10 floors, so they won't be able to travel the whole map until they reach the 100th floor. A week passes and the waiting hall has changed quite a bit. A few people have managed to climb to the 2nd floor. Han tells the team to rest up as training starts again tomorrow. Aaron ignores Han's orders and heads off to train immediately, which gets him a massive earful from Han. Han recalls seeing people like Aaron back in Nihheim. Most of them didn't have a happy ending. Because some things in life just aren't about how hard you try. If they can't achieve a certain goal, even after giving it their all, it just means they don't have the talent for it. They either have to find a different path, or they'll end up sacrificed. The next morning, when the first team gets to the training ground, they find the second team already grinding hard. Jenna is stunned. No way, I thought the second team wouldn't do anything dangerous, but they're actually sparring with real swords. Han watches them, sensing that something has changed. While Edis, User, and Roderick are training Zika, the first member of the second team is nowhere to be found. By this point, Master had already removed Velkist and Nerissa from the third team. Just as promised, those two shot up to the second floor. Han is the first one to notice the new arrivals. He realizes what's happening and says, "Guess it's time to recruit some new blood for the team." Still, he's a little worried, sensing these two only want to join a top-tier squad. With that, the three of them greet the two new recruits at the entrance to the second floor. Han guesses what happened to Zika. He was likely demoted back to the first floor because he wasn't pulling his weight in previous missions. He'd heard as much over the last few days. Edis mentions that with only 3 people left on the second team, they won't be able to handle any more conquest missions. That's why she decided to ramp up the training. If Master could recruit some high-level players, that would be great, but Han thinks the 2 rookies won't have any interest in joining the second team. After all, the first team is currently short-handed. As for the 2 new recruits, they're busy wondering which squad they're going to be assigned to. We'll probably end up on either the first team or the second team. Right, Nerissa asks Han. She asks it like she's mocking him, like, "Do you even see any other teams on the second floor?" Nerissa immediately declares she wants to join the first team, confidently saying she won't be a burden. Naturally, Velkist hears this and his eyes start burning with rage. "Watch your mouth, you're out of your mind. Know your place." She doesn't back down, firing back that physical strength isn't the only way to measure a person's value. She insists that beyond combat skills, she has plenty of other talents. It's just a matter of whether Velkist has the eyes to see it or not. Han finally speaks up. "Do you two think you get to choose? Stop arguing. I'm the one who decides here." Jenna whispers to Han that it seems the girl is really desperate to join their team. Strange, isn't it? Han turns to Nerissa and asks why she's so keen on joining his team. He finds out it's all because of the rumors circulating in the territory. "Even though I didn't believe the rumors at first, after seeing it with my own eyes, I changed my mind." Han sees it now. He guesses she must have used a rebirth stone, the item that lets heroes rerun completed missions. Or perhaps Master played back the footage of Han's team completing their mission. Through that, Nerissa watched every single clip and realized the rumors were actually underselling Captain Han's capabilities. A hero wanting to follow the strong to survive is only natural. That's why she wants to join the first team. Hearing that User standing nearby gets annoyed, doesn't that basically mean she's looking down on the second team? Velkist chimes in saying it doesn't matter if you're new or old because this is a survival game for the strongest, not the ones who've been around the longest. So he wants to join the first team too, insisting he'd be more useful than Nerissa. Usually choosing new members for the first team is done by drawing lots, but Nerissa refuses to accept that method. She thought that leaving it all to luck was too much, so she wanted to find a more effective method. Han agreed, and Edis was on board with that too. Han then discussed these two with Jenna. Jenna argued that even if he made the final call, someone would still be unhappy, so wasn't drawing lots better, unless of course he already had someone in mind. Yeah, Han honestly didn't know how to choose. If it weren't for Velkis's terrible personality, he probably would have picked him already. Since neither of them wanted to rely on luck or hand the decision over to someone else, Han asked if they were both willing to prove they were worthy. "To join my team. Let's have a fight." This made sense, as Han needed to see their true capabilities before he could make a decision. A few minutes later, everyone arrived at the special combat arena. Han warned them that lethal weapons wouldn't be used, and they were to fight until one of them was taken down. Afterward, he would make his choice. The first to step in was Velkis, who asked with a smug look, "Do I get to kill her?" Han replied that if he could pull it off, go ahead. They could fight however they wanted. Nerissa then coated her sword in a paralytic poison that could cause full-body tremors. She was going all out this time since the captain said they could fight however they wanted. Nerissa had been skilled with poisons since she first arrived. She had used them many times against monsters, but this was her first time using them on a person. One slash and it's game over, no questions asked. Velkis saw this and, refusing to lose, said, "I won't give you the chance to use that on me." The atmosphere in the arena was tense, as if one of them might actually lose their life. As soon as the signal to start was given, Velkis crazily lunged at Nerissa. She immediately used her swordsmanship with lightning speed. The battle was fierce under everyone's watchful eyes. The most surprised one was User. "That jerk. He's completely different from when we trained together. Now I realize he was only using a fraction of his strength." Han observed closely and told Jenna and Eren to watch carefully. They could learn a lot from them, as both fighters were at a 4-star skill level. They were similar to User, but they had many unique differences in their combat styles. These weren't skills that newcomers could easily possess. Back in the match, Nerissa was starting to lose ground to Velkis. even though her speed was superior in the cramped space of the arena, and she couldn't fully utilize her power. Velkus's overwhelming pressure was gaining the upper hand, but Nerissa wouldn't give up that easily. She pulled a throwing dagger from her sleeve. She flung it straight at Velkus with zero hesitation. Naturally, the dagger was loaded with toxins. As soon as he was hit, Velkus's body became paralyzed. His limbs wouldn't move at all. Nerissa thought the fight was over early. Just as she was thinking she'd be the winner, Velkus suddenly smashed his sword hilt into her stomach, sending her flying back. Nerissa's poison was strong, but it didn't affect Velkus much. He won the match. Han assessed that the fight was quite impressive and quickly made his decision. Nerissa would be the one to join the team. Velkus was so shocked his face went dark. He thought he'd be the one chosen because he won the fight. He was stronger, sure, but with his mad dog personality, I think Han picking Nerissa was the safer choice. As for Han's decision, only Jenna, Lorik, and Edis understood the reason why. The result was quite intriguing. Nerissa had intentionally cornered herself to lower Velkus's guard. That defense from earlier was just a feint. It was all to set up one single strike. Velkus had put all his faith in his own skills and rushed in blindly. That was Nerissa's strategy. The others watched the fight, but failed to see the strategy behind it. Only Jenna, Edis, Rorik, and Han understood what was happening. As for Velkus, he was still furious, questioning Han on why he was the winner, yet Nerissa was the one chosen. Han simply replied that it wasn't a good fit. Han's team already included a swordsman, a spearman, a mage, and an archer. Since all four were combat-oriented, his team really needed someone like Nerissa. To adapt better to different situations, I admit you're talented, but you aren't right for our team. That's all. And if you still can't accept it, then try fighting me. If you can last 1 minute, I'll take you. Velkus might be crazy, but he wasn't stupid. He wasn't going to throw his life away. He just smiled meaningfully and asked, "What if there were another member?" He said that while looking toward Aaron. If Team 1's composition is so important, it's reasonable enough. But what about him? He doesn't even fulfill his responsibilities as a spearman. Velkus had watched every one of Team 1's matches and found them interesting, but someone didn't fit. That person was Aaron. He asked the captain, "Do you really need a spearman so badly that you're willing to ignore Aaron's weaknesses? Don't you see he's the one holding us back?" Jenna immediately spoke up loudly, defending Aaron. "Aaron has done a great job, don't talk nonsense." But her words were countered by Velkus, who sneered that someone with as much talent as her couldn't possibly understand. Sometimes comfort is just poison. Han, feeling drained, muttered, "Just shut up, both of you, my head is killing me." In truth, he felt the same way as Velkus, that a spear wielder really wasn't all that necessary. Your team could swap out the lineup if a skilled swordsman joined, but that's only if that swordsman is better than your spear user.